For me as a practitioner who does draw on a variety of different interventions as required, there is no tool in my tool bag that I found as useful as motivational interviewing. And motivational interviewing I am able to use with any client in any situation. I can't say that about any other skills-based model. And so it has a utility, it has a use for me, which can be so comprehensively called on, which makes it particularly special.
Motivational interviewing, I think, fundamentally is an approach to helping people who are ambivalent about any kind of decision or area of their life, whether it's making a particular kind of change in their substance use or health behavior, but also other kinds of changes in their relationships, changes in how they deal with life in general.
For me, motivational interviewing is about inspiring people to change and respecting people and looking up to them in such a way that they remember to look up to themselves and help enhance their strength and their confidence about making changes to their lives to make them as fulfilling as possible.
Well, the attraction for me as a practitioner working in addiction around motivational interviewing is that it sets a different relationship with the client from the start off. With so many of the other interventions that we might draw on, that we might use, they're often about giving information, they're often about taking people through a particular course of strategies, about helping them develop techniques about managing things that need to change and being able to maintain that change, all of which is good. But what motivational interviewing does, which I think, and it's such a great boon for the practitioner, is that it allows you to develop a relationship with a client whereby you're not the expert. You're not trying to say, I know what's wrong with you and here is the solution. It's a relationship whereby you come together and you're nutting something out as peers, as equals. As I've got something to put in this kitty, you've got something to put into the kitty, into our basket of shared knowledge, and that is what underpins motivational interviewing for me. And it's because you come together as equals in a joint exercise that things can begin to happen. And those things that begin to happen are that the client starts to look more inwards around what are the resources that I've got, what's the understanding I've got about what's going on, what are the skills that I can call on to be able to make some change. And the practitioner kind of almost becomes the secondary player here who nudges this internal problem-solving exercise that goes on.
I think a lot's been made about ambivalence around people not being sure what it is they want to do. But what I've seen a lot is that people often are on the fence not because they don't really know which way they want to go, but because they're frightened and they don't have the confidence to make their lives what they want.
We've learned something about mechanisms of action in motivational interviewing. We know that the clinician's interpersonal skills are important in making MI effective. We know that change talk is likely to be implicated in the effectiveness of motivational interviewing. So those are both good things to know. If you're a clinician just starting out and you're just beginning to use or learn motivational interviewing, you have it way easier than people who first started, because we have some roadmaps for you about, like, these are the elements that are really important to pay attention to. So that's an advantage. But what a mistake it would be to think that we actually know why MI really works, or that we've got the mechanisms of action for it nailed down. We're just beginning to know a little bit. That's where we really are, is that we know a little tiny bit, and there's so much more to know.
And often sort of clients will come to me where they might feel, rightly or wrongly, but they certainly feel as though they're stuck. There's something kind of not quite working for them. And so the sort of empathic approach, the collaborative approach allows me, or hopefully allows me anyway, to be able to enter their world and to sort of understand it from kind of their perspectives. And if I'm able to do that, if they allow me to do that, of course, through the sort of therapeutic relationship, then maybe we can kind of move through together. So I find that whole aspect really, really helpful.
And I think there are two components really that are equally important for me when I think about how we do that, how MI actually helps people resolve ambivalence. One is that when people are ambivalent about any area of their life, they tend to build a sense of pressure about that decision, about making the decision. Often the pressure comes from outside. People are pushing on them, giving them a hard time, advising them, telling them they need to change this or that. But just as often it comes from inside. We begin to become frustrated with ourselves. Why haven't I done this already? What's wrong with me? What's it ever going to take? Am I ever going to get out of this indecision and this frustrated, uncertain state? And I think as that pressure builds, people become less and less able to work through and resolve the ambivalence. I think it actually contributes to people becoming more and more stuck in a kind of chronically ambivalent state. And I think one part of what MI does is really help to remove that pressure, to help people take the pressure off so that they can begin to think about the decision they're trying to make, the change they're considering, in a way that isn't so affected by that pressure and the pressure that sort of interferes with their ability to think clearly and think in a fresh way about what they want to do. I think given the ability to take the pressure off, the other thing that MI does is really help people tap into their own well of ability to make good decisions for themselves, their own natural inherent motivation to move in a positive direction, for growth, for improved health and well-being. And once people can tap into that and feel supported in doing that, really invited to do that, they're very often able to come to a decision, solve the problem, realize what it is that they want and need to do, and move forward.
MI is really important for health behaviour change. There's lots of health problems involve changing lifestyle factors, and lifestyle factors take a lot of motivation and a lot of effort to change. Diet, exercise, those kind of things. And in the past, the main way that health practitioners have tried to help people change those behaviours is to provide advice and information. But research shows that that kind of approach works for about 5 to 10% of people. The rest are kind of left struggling with trying to find the motivation. They often know what it is they need to do. It's not the issue about information, it's the motivation.
There are two primary areas that I'm interested in with regard to motivational interviewing. One, broadly speaking, is the use of MI to enhance engagement into treatment. And this is across a variety of problem areas. That is, how can we use MI to help people who need treatment be more likely to enter treatment and find treatment for themselves? How can we use MI to help people once they start treatment to actually participate more actively, to attend consistently, to stay with the treatment long enough in order to be able to really benefit from it? And then sort of related to that is I'm very interested in the variety of areas and types of problems and types of groups of people where we can use MI, and so adapting MI from where it originally came from in addictions and health behavior into areas related to mental health care, in areas related to everything as much as the project I'm most interested in right now, which is we're using MI with living organ donors.
And I work in the field of adolescent comorbidity, so that's drug and alcohol and mental health. And I'm lucky enough to still be a clinician, so I work primarily in the clinical field and work with a small team. And I guess it's our task to work with young people and their families where essentially the kind of presenting problems relate to drug and alcohol mental health.
One of my favourite areas of work is working with people with persistent pain. People with persistent pain are often perceived, or can be perceived by clinicians as difficult to work with, reluctant to change. They fail to attend appointments and don't want to do the things that they're being asked to do. They've got chronic pain. They don't want to reduce their medication, and they don't want to increase their activity level and their exercise because it hurts. Motivational interviewing fits really well in this area of work because it's about changing clinician attitudes towards working with these people, working at a slower pace perhaps.
So we're starting to look at what helps people from within change, I guess. Over time, I guess what I've seen is to the place now where motivational interviewing, motivational approaches, not only is in health, particularly addiction, we're now seeing it across a range of different behavioural disciplines, including, I'll include corrections in there. And I suppose what we're starting to see too is that motivational approaches are being seen not only to engage people into treatment, but also to engage people in conversations that get them to think differently around what they're doing and their attitudes.
Green Prescription is a New Zealand-wide program that supports people to increase their level of activity for the benefit of their health. So it's targeting those people that are inactive, have some motivation to change, and are looking to sort of engage in long-term change in their activity level.
Well, motivational interviewing is particularly suited for brief interventions. For many clients, they don't perceive that gambling is a problem. They often see it as a pastime, an enjoyment, something they keep to that has some downsides to it, but they'll put the downsides will be attributed to not having sufficient money, or it'll be through having an unlucky day, for example. So often the motivation, the brief intervention, is to get people to go and step back and think, well, there might be an alternative way of participating. There might be a connection between what actually happens and the way that they have come to terms with it. For many problem gamblers, there's a lot of ambivalence happening. One other thing that we find very significant with motivational interviewing and problem gambling is that many of our clients will turn up with coexisting problems. So with the coexisting problems, you'll often find that people disconnect very quickly from counselling. We know, for example, the longer we keep people in counselling, the more likelihood they are to have positive outcomes. So in that way, motivational interviewing is particularly suitable for problem gambling.
What I've learned in my research about MI is the importance and value of the clinician that offers the treatment, and how inseparable the quality of the therapeutic interaction is from the benefit that is derived from the treatment. And we tend to think about psychosocial treatments as being composed of elements like skills building and knowledge acquisition and so on. But we rarely think about the value and importance of the clinician and the role they play in delivering that treatment. And that's my interest, and that's the focus of my research.
learning MI has been investigated more recently. Research initially on MI looked at, was it effective? We now know that it's effective across a broad range of behaviours. And researchers then moved to start looking at how is it effective, and more recently, how best to train MI. And this research tells us that you can't really learn it by reading a book, that you really do need to attend a workshop where you get practice and feedback, and even more importantly, beyond the workshop, that you have some sort of ongoing coaching.
I think with regard to teaching motivational interviewing, the accessing your own experience and having to have, I suppose, have the experience of being in an interview where somebody does work with your ambivalence around something and you get to feel a sense of shift, if you like. I think that's one of the crucial things if you can achieve that with people that you're training. So getting people to work on their own personal experience, getting them to work at a more emotional level too. I guess with the people I train, I try to get them in touch with what is it that they feel while they're actually having those sorts of practice sessions. What is shifting internally for them, so they come to understand what they want to be trying to achieve with people they work with.
How people learn MI is different depending on the person, and what we do know is that people mostly don't learn it by just sitting in a workshop. And in a didactic presentation, they might learn about MI, but they don't learn to do it. That it requires practice. And probably the best way to learn MI is to learn a little bit about it and then to go try it with your clients and let your clients shape you into the best practice of MI. So you go to a workshop or you go to a teacher and what you get is a compass. And the compass tells you, okay, this is how you'll know if you're on track. And then you sit down and you practice with your clients, look at your compass and say, am I on track or not? And it's the client that really tells you.
In regards to the spirit and the structure of motivational interviewing, I think one of the unique things that it brings forward is that it provides a way for the therapist to regulate their own affect. In other words, it gives a structure for the therapist to contain their intense thoughts and feelings they might have towards the client or their predicament, and then also to refrain from jumping in and trying to solve it for them in a way in which might not be as helpful as they might think for the client, because one of the things that we do know is that when people can find the solutions to their own problems, they're probably far more likely to take some ownership and take responsibility for implementing those solutions.
And how I see that tangata whaiora who's sitting in front of me and wanting to promote the value of, I accept you as you are, you have your own answers. I'm here to walk alongside you, not to tell you what to do, but there might be times when I might suggest something in a way that's going to still promote your autonomy. I'm not going to tell you what to do. And I'm going to do it with the belief that you have your own answers. I'm going to do it with the belief that you're a person who's on a journey of change, and gentle hands always work better than the rod. Evocation, I've always understood that to be the belief that they have their own answers. So this person comes here, they've walked their journey, they already have their own answers. Maybe they don't necessarily see them at the time, and maybe my role is to, as one of the definitions I heard of motivational being, help a person talk themselves into change. That I'm there to pull out, to listen with the ear that I've had, the trained ear that I've had, to the gold that they give kōrero to that maybe they don't necessarily see. And if I offer a mirror, showing them maybe what some of that gold is, that may shift their motivation from maybe not considering change at all, to maybe they have been considering change, to maybe actually they're even made a decision. But generally, you know, those who haven't made a decision to change, or those that are sort of thinking about change, giving them those nuggets back maybe helps them to make that decision.
Probably the anecdotal feedback that gives us the most sort of impetus to keep going is that people would say things like, we had a speech pathologist who was running a voice clinic for people with voice projection issues, and she said, I've stopped telling people to stop yelling and it's working. Those sorts of things. Podiatrists who were saying, I've stopped telling people what shoes to buy and started asking them what sorts of activities that is important for them to engage in. We were getting feedback that people were starting to change their practice. People were saying, I now know what to do when someone doesn't do what I tell them to.
When I know I'm doing motivational interviewing well, I'm looking at a person with a sense of awe. And I have yet to meet anyone that if I really sit and will allow myself to join them in their world and kind of be there with them, that I haven't walked away with something that I appreciate for myself, that I get out of, that I'm inspired by. And to me, when I'm feeling that way, I know we're on track. Empathy is very important. That my ability to relate to you and understand where you're coming from is an essential part of motivational interviewing and of me trying to help you. To me, if I'm empathic with you, then you're going to have that sense that you're understood, which is a very important first step towards change. I think even more important than empathy is acceptance. And it's not just knowing who you are and understanding where you're coming from, but appreciating it and being excited by it. And if I can share that with you, it can help you step away from these feelings of being demoralized, being frustrated, being confused, and can help you make a better self and a better life for yourself.
Telling people what to do in healthcare just doesn't work. So if somebody needs to better manage their diabetes, telling them what to do usually doesn't work. And most people come with that ambivalence, and healthcare professionals get really irritated with having to keep providing the same advice and not getting very far.
I think that one of the problems in the helping professions, kind of generally or broadly, is that we kind of look down on people. I was trained in clinical psychology, so I was trained for years to go in, assess, diagnose, figure out what's wrong, and then fix it. Or if I couldn't fix it, tell the person how to fix it themselves. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that in a way, because it still is helping people by removing things that are problems for them. But to me, it misses this whole bigger picture, which is that if you're struggling, you may not have very good ideas about what to do to make that better. I, as an expert clinician, come in and have some better ideas maybe than you do at the moment, but I will never have as good of ideas about your life as you will if instead I'll put my energy towards inspiring you and helping you think more broadly, get more relaxed, and determine what it is you want to do with your life.
The idea that that change and the decisions about change reside with the client is just so useful for me. So I kind of constantly finding myself going back to sort of checking my writing reflex, making sure that that doesn't get too involved and doesn't sort of muddy the waters, and making sure that we're sort of going back and we're sort of evoking from the client.
Compassion is one of the newest aspects to the spirit of motivational interviewing. And it seems that what Miller and Rolnick are trying to get to is trying to describe what's at the heart of the therapeutic relationship. And as close as I think we can get to is actual compassion, wherein as the helper, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to listen, I'm trying to be empathic, and I'm trying to help somebody get to where they want to be in their life based on what's realistic, achievable, and important to them. And I'm not worrying too much about having to be the expert or having to offer up the best interpretation or coming up with a solution for the person. I'm just here to try to do the best that I can to be helpful to them without judgment, blaming, or shaming in any sort of way.
I think the important thing to know about the 4 processes in MI is that they build on each other. So the first process is engaging, and that's the foundation for everything else that happens in your interaction with the client. You have to be able to engage your client or the person before you can go any further. And that's why the engaging process is first, and why it really is conceptualized as being under or foundational to the other 3 processes.
In my mind, the people I'm training, I see that when I talk with them about how they do stuff, I see them kind of skimming over maybe a bit lightly on the engagement and the relational aspect. They get to the NRTs a little bit too quick.
I think though, to make motivational approach more relevant for the people who come, particularly Māori, it is about how you wrap that engagement process up to incorporate the creating of a space, safe space, which means that people are able to put down their koha kōrero in a way that means that they're in a place of no, that then allows them to transcend, if you like, some of the what might be considered by some as a tapu space, so that it's at that stage that the motivational approach kicks in. So the paradigm, if I'm thinking about a Māori paradigm, is about creating the space so that motivational approach can work, and also closing it up at the other end, again, to allow that spiritual well-being, for want of a better term, to be enhanced. And I suspect that other Indigenous cultures, but also other ethnic cultures, will be in the same place. It's what you do with it in that space once you've created that space, and everyone will have different rules of engagement.
What I'm saying, for instance, is some Malay Muslims, people who work with Malay Muslim communities, they find that, especially for the Malay Muslims, they can get a bit quiet and they might not open up as quickly. So if that was the case, it's not saying that MI doesn't work, but then looking at MI, then what do we focus on? So you're looking about creating a space of safety. So it's not so much about adapting MI, but it's about what you focus on within MI. So then you're asking the questions of, say, for instance, right, this person needs more safety before they can talk about their difficulties, before they want to express what's ambivalent for them, before they want to say certain things. So how can we do that? And if you look at, okay, so maybe being expressive of empathy, more reflections, more complex reflections, that might help. So that's sort of adaptations, but to make it more explicit.
Have a seat, Brian. I'm just going to start us off with a karakia and some acknowledgements as part of our service. So, ngā mihi nui ki a koe te rangatira, kua tai mai nei ki tēnei ata ki te kōrero ki te hurahi i te waipiro me tarakino pia, me huri tō hurahi oranga. Nō reira māku te karakia i tīmata ki tēnei hui, e te atua, maunga rongo ki te whenua, he whakaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa, hanga e te atua, he ngāka hau ki roto ki tēnā o mātou. Whakatongia tō wairua tapu, hei aku hoki ngā kaupapa i tēnei rā, ake. Amen. So I just wanted to acknowledge you for coming today, Thomas, and it was just a karakia as part of our service, just to open our session, seal the energy a bit. So welcome to our service, and I just wanted to ask you, where are you from, Thomas?
Where I live?
Yeah, just where your parents are from. I hear you've got some Māori ancestry there, being part of our service. Where are you from?
Well, my mother's from Gisborne, so she's Ngāti Parau.
Aye.
And
beautiful place.
My father is from Ngāpuhi, but he was pretty much born and raised in Auckland.
Aye. So you've got a nice whakapapa back to Ngāti Porou. It's a beautiful place in Gisborne.
Yeah.
So how connected to your whakapapa are you, to your Ngāti Porou and Ngāpuhi how?
None really.
Okay, so feeling a bit disconnected from the ancestral roots a bit.
Well, I've always tried to ask my my grandmother about it, but she never really wanted to talk about it.
Right, not really forthcoming in life, is she?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, ka pai mate. And that's often an experience of Māori too, is that sense of disconnection. I was curious to see what brings you here today.
It's nothing big really. Just boss had a spat at me about a little accident I had at work and then sent me here.
Okay. So something happened at work, something goes wrong. Sounds like he was concerned.
I just had a little accident with the forklift, knocked over a pallet of a few of the stock, and well, you know, it happens all the time, stuff like that. Just for some reason they started to be hard on me.
Okay. So it's not uncommon for that to happen, but you sort of feel like you've been picked on a bit.
Someone dobbed me in that I may have been. Someone dobbed me in.
Okay. So you're under the influence at the time, is that what you were saying?
I just had a little session just, you know, during smoko.
Okay. I can imagine that to be quite frustrating if you felt you're dobbed in and you're sitting here. So I get a sense that you sort of maybe don't really want to be here, but you feel like you're forced to come.
Well, yeah, the boss told me to come here.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me a little bit about your alcohol and drug use.
What do you mean?
Well, I guess sort of hearing that your boss is concerned, hearing that a part of you is sort of not really, it sounds like you don't really sort of consider yourself to have an issue and you're sort of wondering why you're here. But I was just curious if it was okay with you to have a little explore of your alcohol and drug use. How would that be for you?
It's fine.
Okay.
Cool. Well, it's nothing as bad as, well, what the other fellas do, really.
Okay. So you use with you got some mates who use as well?
Well, yeah. Well, pretty much everyone in my neighbourhood.
Okay.
Just at work, you know, we always have the just, you know, when it's party time, you just want to relax and unwind.
That's just the hood. That's just how it is.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like, you know, you've got mates that use, and for you it sounds like you don't really feel like you're any different to any of your mates in terms of what you use.
Well, why are you curious to know about my mates using?
Well, I guess I was curious about your alcohol and drug use. I get a sense you're feeling a bit maybe uncomfortable with some of the questions.
Well, I just don't think it's an issue, so I don't really need to talk about it.
Aye. So you really would prefer not to be here, not sitting in front of me, feeling like you have to sort of open up.
Oh man, like I said, boss told me to come here, so I'm here.
Okay. Well, look, I acknowledge the courage it takes just to walk in the door anyway, even if it feels like you're pressured to. You know, welcome to our service, and I acknowledge the courage it takes.
Okay.
Yeah. So are you happy to explore a bit more about your alcohol and drugs? On the one hand, you're saying you don't really have a problem and that you would prefer not to talk about it. And on the other hand, what brought you here was your employer directing you to be here.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's become a problem?
What? Why? I don't think I really need to say anything else, because, well, like, boss brought me here. I don't want them to.
Okay. You're concerned about this information getting back to your employer?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I can understand. Information that's shared here is confidential, so what's said in here remains in here. Just to maybe help sort of allay your fears a little bit, or concerns.
Okay.
The next process is focusing. Focusing comes logically after engaging. The focusing is when you and the client negotiate or come to an agreement about what kind of behavior or problem is going to be on the table, what's up for discussion. That may not be something that is clear coming through the door, or it may be. It may be something that's very obvious. But either way, that focusing step is, or process is one in which you and the client collaboratively figure out what you're willing to call your target for the time you spend together. These first two processes, engaging and focusing, aren't necessarily motivational interviewing, right? Lots of therapies or interventions use engaging and focusing processes. You can conduct them using the spirit of motivational interviewing, and if you do, they'll be very consistent with MI, and hopefully they'll set the stage for other interactions you're going to have with the person that will become motivational interviewing. But in and of themselves, they're really not yet motivational interviewing.
So I get a sense actually that when you're reflecting on your cannabis use, from the time that you walked into the room to now, that maybe that's changed a bit. And I was just curious to see how it might have changed from the time that you walked into the room to now.
What, my feelings on cannabis use?
Yeah, about your thoughts about cannabis use.
I guess, well, now that I do think about it, I do tend to smoke weed by myself a lot. Like I said, that incident at work, that whole day was pretty stressful.
Aye.
So I couldn't wait for smoker to happen.
Aye. So from the time that you come in where it definitely was a problem, you're thinking that maybe there is some problems with the cannabis use or associated with your cannabis use?
Well, I guess I do use a bit more than most people.
The third process, which is evoking, is where the tide turns and it really becomes motivational interviewing. Evoking is about pulling from the client what their own motivations and desires and needs are for change. And what are their ideas about how that change ought to happen? You know, what do they think they ought to do? How do they think they ought to do it? Why do they think they ought to do it? That's the evoking process. This is where MI really diverges from other kinds of therapy. If you're doing cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, you might have engaging and you might have focusing, but you're not going to put as much emphasis on evoking as in motivational interviewing. And there's going to be a lot more emphasis placed on instructing, teaching, building skills, things like that. Whereas in MI, the heavy emphasis is on evoking. And this is where we begin to see the attention that's being paid to a client's language, specifically change talk, attending to the client's language about change. That is most apparent in the evoking stage. And if you think about it, there's a reason why evoking has to build on focusing, because you can't attend differentially and selectively to change talk unless you know what the change is supposed to be about.
So you can be grateful that that hasn't happened and that's not your sort of journey. But coming back to your cannabis use too, just curious to see again how it's changed for you sort of from the time that you've walked in to now, because I really get a sense you are considering maybe what life might be like if your cannabis use changed, was to change.
Well, I was just trying to think when the last time I was actually sober.
Okay. So it's becoming a problem in the relationship when you're not stoned. And on the other hand, you're paying $200 to $400 in order to keep smoking.
Yeah, I guess.
So it sounds like it's what's important is looking at some different coping strategies where cannabis, rather than using cannabis, you're going to sort of find some other strategy to cope with.
Something cheaper, yeah.
Something cheaper.
And legal.
And legal. Any thoughts?
Not alcohol. Probably.
Not alcohol? Okay, so you're sort of moving away from the chemical enhancement sort of phase or coping strategies. What would you start to look at? Because it sounds like you're sort of getting quite focused on...
Well, you mentioned running. I guess back in my younger days, you know, I was hardcore into league and touch and basketball.
Aye.
So
you've been a really sporty, active, fit man.
Yeah, in my younger days.
Yeah, in your younger days.
Planning is the last of the four processes, and logically it comes after evoking, right? Once you've evoked from a person what it is that they think is important for them to do and why, you might move forward with them to make a plan about how that's going to happen. So the question really shifts from why into how. And again, you're going to be have evoked from the person what they want to do, and hopefully planning is a collaborative process in which you work out a plan to do that. Logically, that should happen after evoking. You need to know what the person wants to do before you talk about how that has to happen.
What sort of push would be required for you?
Well, I could find some like-minded mates, I guess. Stop hanging out with the boys who drink too much.
Oh, so you've got sort of another set of mates as well. They're not all just drinkers and workmates. You actually have another set of friends as well that you can access who...
Not really. All I have is just, you know, my mates and workmates.
Okay.
But, you know, it's a big warehouse, so...
So there would be somebody there that you think you'd...
There's a few tall people there.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure can play basketball.
Yep. So what you'd need is just having someone to do that with.
Yeah.
Great.
You know, they're always doing those little touch tournaments.
Yeah, that's right.
Within the thing, I could probably try and get a basketball team together or something.
Yeah.
Or I could do the touch thing as well.
Yeah. So you're a man of many sports.
Well, you know, just playing around, really.
Yeah.
Whether it's running with a rugby ball.
Yeah.
But, you know, I like basketball more.
Yeah. So it sounds like you would be reasonably confident to get a team together to go and play basketball in 3 months.
Pretty sure I could find some people.
Yeah. So, you know, from the time you walked in here and it was about your boss, and it sounds like that's sort of in the background, and what's in the foreground is you being on those courts, because you've been a really active man, and that's somewhere that's where you want to be again. And cannabis doesn't really fit into that picture at all. What's the next step for you?
I guess if I want to be on the courts again, I would have to start cutting down.
Okay.
So you can see that the four processes are in many ways logical. They're linear, they're sequential. You know, first you have to have engaging, then you have to have focusing, then you have to have evoking, and finally you might have planning. But they also fold back on themselves. So although they're logical and linear, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to go in that order or that you can't go back, right? So maybe evoking starts right away once the engagement process is complete, because when you've engaged the person, they already know what the focus should be and they begin offering change talk. And so you would slip right into that. Maybe once you've made a plan and the person's tried it out, you need to go back and revisit that plan and change it, right? Maybe there's a rupture in your alliance with the client and you really need to go back and focus on engaging again. So even though they're sequential, they also fold back on themselves as well, those 4 processes. The last thing I think it's important to know about the 4 processes is that if you're going to do motivational interviewing, you really always need engaging. You almost certainly need focusing. You need evoking, but you may or may not need planning. It may be the case that a person can decide for themselves exactly what they want to do, and they really don't need help from you in implementing that plan or even making that plan. And certainly that's been an important lesson in the research that has come forward about how people change. Often we think they need us to make a change, and what our research tells us is often they have an interaction with us in which they resolve ambivalence, become motivated, and then go forward and do it. So it's possible that the pyramid ends with evoking, and that person doesn't really need much help from us in planning. Change talk is the kind of language that a client offers when they're speaking about their desire or their need for change to happen in their lives. And the important thing to know about change talk is that it's a normal part of being ambivalent. Change talk isn't something that you have to create in a person. It is something that is always present when a person is ambivalent about a self-destructive or a troublesome behavior. And people can't help but giving change talk when they're struggling with something that's painful to them. And as soon as they start saying, why it's important and why they value whatever it is, they will also tell you the downside of it. And if you set up the interpersonal interaction with them to be empathic and to be safe, change talk just naturally emerges in an ambivalent person. When a person feels 2 ways about something, change talk will emerge in a safe interpersonal environment.
Bill Miller has an interesting metaphor of change talk and change talk language, and he calls it the hill of change. And when somebody is approaching the hill of change, what you will see is what I think today we're calling preparatory change talk, and those are those expressions of desire, ability, reason, and need. It doesn't necessarily mean that somebody is going to change, but they're certainly talking about changing. So I wish my life was better. There was a time when I had quit smoking a long time ago. I got a million reasons to stop gambling and to make some changes in my gamblings. I need to improve my diet and change my exercise, or else I might have another heart attack. And so what we know is that's the kind of encouraging language for therapists to listen out for and to reinforce and to elicit when they can. And so that's coming up the front side of the hill of change. And then at the top, when they start coming down, what you would theoretically start to hear is what Miller calls implementing change talk. And this is a really good characterization of the resolution of ambivalence. So here you're going to hear commitment language when people are saying, I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut down on my smoking. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm definitely going to, change my diet. They become activated. They become ready, willing, and able to change, and just kind of point me in a direction, and I'm off and running. Or what you might start to hear, which is an important thing to listen out for, is that people have actually already started taking some steps. They've already made some attempts at modifying their environment, or changing their routines, or cutting down on their drinking or their gambling, or whatever it is, which is a good indicator that they've already started moving in the direction of change. And so one of the things that's really important around this language of change that seems to have emerged out of motivational interviewing is for the therapist to attune themselves to what the client is saying and interact with it respectively. So when you hear change talk, you want to reinforce it. You want to have people elaborate on it Ask them if there are specific times that this has happened before and how do they do that. And go back to using those basic micro skills of affirmations, reflections, and summaries, and open-ended questions.
So, what's that about that you haven't, in that 3 weeks, 1 day,
I don't know,
22 days, you've actually made a decision not to pick up your old life and continue on?
I kind of told myself not to just before I left, and then I'm kind of sticking with that, and I don't kind of know why. I don't know. There's no real reason why I haven't yet. It's just that I just don't think it'll work the way I always dream it. Well, set myself up, like whatever. If I do that again, the next leg is a long one, a real long one, and I can't go back there. There's no way I'm going back there.
Right. So on the one hand, you can set yourself up and take the risk, but on the other hand, you know that actually it may not last.
No, it never lasts.
Never lasts. But I guess what I'm really interested in is that you've made a commitment, 22 days, drug-free, haven't gone back into that lifestyle. What's keeping you? Because you're at the crossroads, you're kind of just paused there at the moment, not sure about this other bit over here. What's keeping in that place?
Fiona.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Tell me about Fiona.
She's told me that it's over if I do. Tell you about Fiona, man. She's been with me. She's the one who stayed through all the shit. And I owe her something.
Have there been times where you've drunk less?
Yeah, I guess if there's something important on for my son, if I have to take him to soccer in the morning, mostly my mum will do that. But if there's something important concerning my son, then I'll try and cut back. It's not that easy just to not drink.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're with your son and around your son, that's when you try and cut back and do things differently?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sustained talk is just change talk put in reverse. So if change talk is about desire, ability, reason, and need for change, sustained talk would be desire, ability, reason, and need to not change. Typically, it's what you hear when people are sort of arguing to maintain the status quo.
And I'm wondering about what might make it hard to see opportunities in a different world.
Yeah, well, the different world isn't offering me opportunities. The different world's offering me night shift and minimum wage and, nothing. So it's like set yourself up, set your girl up, or don't. And that's your pro-social living, and that's your, old behaviours.
Sure. Well, you just described to me how it looked like a minute ago.
Did I?
Minimum wage,
night
shift.
Yeah, that's not much fun. That doesn't look very good.
Yeah.
That looks really hard.
Yeah.
And
that is really hard.
I know that's the right thing. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
That is guts right there. Going to a job you hate, going home, cooking your missus a dinner, looking after your kids. I mean, that's what a real man does. But I don't have those guts.
I've got a really good group of friends, and we have such a good time together. And I feel good when I drink. I don't drink a lot. I mean, I'm not an alcoholic. My brother has been,
right,
and I've seen him struggle with it. I've seen him lose everything. I've seen him work through that, and that's not where I'm at. So I think I've got it under control.
Yeah.
And I kind of think that I can carry on. Maybe I could slow down a bit, but I don't think I need to lose that part of me.
Right.
I can make in an hour what I could make in a night or a week of nights. It's pretty, you know, from where I'm from, that's a really, you know, there's no decision at all. That's just like, what are you up to if you don't?
Yeah. I'm confused though at the moment, because you're saying, yep, you could make in a night what you make in a week, but you haven't. 22 days,
yep.
You haven't done that. So tell me what that's about.
I just told myself I wouldn't this time, and then Fiona said, you will not this time.
So you told yourself you wouldn't. So are you the sort of guy that once you make a decision, you're going to go, you're staunch with that decision?
Yeah, even if it's the wrong one.
So I'm picking up this world actually has the freedom to you to be your own man.
You know, maybe.
Maybe.
I don't, you know, that bit was nice. If it was full of bits like that, sure. But I mean, you know, eventually you have to go off to your job and you know, pay your wages. I mean, your mortgage and
yeah,
it's just massive.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is. Absolutely, it's massive.
So that's how Rob sees it. Yep. For him, kind of taking your relationship to a new level and moving on together and kind of somehow growing up together would part of that would be you slowing down your alcohol use, right?
Yeah.
And what do you think about that?
I mean, he makes a really good point.
What is it? What's good about that point?
Well, I would like to have a family. I'd like to settle down. I'd like to settle down.
Cost of falling off the wagon, going back to here, and the cost of a phone call.
Yeah, it's a phone call. Fuck. I can make a phone call.
Yeah. And what else might you do before we meet next time?
I'm going to cook spag bowl for Fiona tonight.
Right, okay. So significance of that?
I haven't cooked spag bowl in nearly 13 years.
Right, okay.
Yeah, no, she'll like that.
And what message is it going to give Fiona?
What message?
Yeah. What's
is
going to be
giving you?
Yeah.
That I love you. I do. You know? Fuck. I probably don't say it.
Sure.
One of the things traditionally that we've worked with in motivational interviewing is this concept of rolling with resistance. And resistance never was understood as a personality trait of the individual. It was always sort of put out there as a dynamic that happens between two people and has a two-way street. One of the things that Miller and Rolnick introduced into counseling was when resistance is there, for the therapist to take responsibility for not increasing it. In other words, there are some proven strategies that we can utilize that often can decrease the level of resistance or interpersonal tension or discord in the room through simply reflecting to people, emphasizing personal control and responsibility, trying to work hard to come alongside people to show them that we trying to see the world or their situation as they see it. And then subtly shifting focus sometimes when you come to a complete dead end with somebody, to take a slight turn, just to move away from the topic as opposed to come to a therapeutic impasse with somebody. Actually, resistance is like any other feeling or thought that somebody might have when put in a position about changing something they don't want to change. They could be reluctant, they could be confused, they could be scared, they could be worried, they could be ashamed, they could be resistant. There's a whole host of thoughts and feelings that could be going on. So one of the things that Theresa Moyers has encouraged us to take a look at is in regards to the relationship between the client and the helper. What could be going on? What could be getting in the way? And the word that they've come up with is discord. Is that discord seems to more accurately reflect the relational component.
In working with Māori, there is that, there are some that sort of have that, well, confrontation works, you know, put it in their face, let them have their sort of awakening, and then they'll sort of take it from there. My experience has been reflective listening validates their perception. They feel heard, which is often an experience maybe they haven't had. And it offers the ability to give that mirror for them to see their own journey and gain a different perspective, which is the confronting element. So you don't need to explicitly point out the areas of Māori, the areas of their life that are sort of dysfunctional or not working. And offering that reflective listening and offering a mirror, they get to see it without judgment and without me actually pointing a finger.
Like I said, when you first came in, we are the experts in helping people to stop drinking, make changes in their use. You've told me today about how much you're drinking and the effects that it's having on your life, but what I'm really concerned about is how much you're drinking and that you actually need to stop and you need some help to stop.
Okay.
Well, resistance can be that ambivalence under pressure. It can be that I feel two ways about something and I don't know how to resolve that, so a way is then to be resistant to having to resolve it. It can be that I don't know how to make changes, and so the resistance is easier to live with than trying to work out possible changes. But resistance can also be produced from the relationship with the practitioner, so that if I, as a practitioner, at even the most basic, don't be respectful with my client, I'm likely to incur resistance.
You're not convinced at the moment, I understand that. And
you know, convince me, because, you know, I kind of want to be.
Sure. Well, it's not up to me to convince you, because this is your life and this is your story, and you've got to walk your life, and I can't walk your life for you. I only walk my own. And so, but I can walk with you on this life to try and think about, because I've no interest in actually you falling over and going back into a lifestyle of crime, because I know where it'll take you. And I'm hearing it with your relationship, it's going to take your relationship too. Because you said before that Fiona's got the bottom line drawn pretty clearly.
With clients who become very monosyllabic, it's not that they're particularly resistant to anything, but they don't have an experience of talking about feelings or about options for different actions. And so the whole world for them is just really closed down into something which is, it's very difficult for them to even perceive that there might be options, perceive that there might be alternative actions. And so you, the counsellor, are trying to open up the possibilities, and you engage in a discussion with them, and all you get back is the grunt. And so it requires a different kind of patience, really, as you just work with grunts and you just take time and you become, you reflect what you think the grunts might mean, and sometimes you get responses and sometimes you don't, but you persevere with it until you're really trying to tune yourself into the client, to try and think, what are the anxieties that they're feeling, how does it relate to the experience that you know that they've been through, and you use that just to try to begin to open them up, and you're trying to open them up to the possibilities of change.
What have you been thinking about over the last little while about getting your life back on track? Because I noticed
I've been thinking about how easy it would be to deal P again.
Yep.
I mean, I've been thinking about how I could actually set myself up the right way, doing that the wrong way.
Sure. So what I'm picking up is that that's a life that you know a lot about, and you can make lots of money and set yourself up well. What's the other side? Because I guess when I talk to guys like yourself who've done time, often are thinking about actually, maybe life can be a bit different. So I'm wondering where you're at with the kind of thinking
well,
about.
at the end of that last week inside, I had that kind of, okay, what's next buzz, and it just doesn't work out here.
Okay.
I don't have I don't know what that is.
Sure. So life on the outside is pretty different than the kind of the expectation of life on the inside. So I'm picking up.
It's worse.
Well, in regards to questions, I guess it's open questions anyway are your opener. They're your beginner, your starter to get people going, to get people talking about something that you think is going to be useful, opening them up. And in that sense, I think what you do is you convey quite a sense of interest, sense of curiosity. And if you have genuine interest in that person, and that's my belief anyway, that'll come through in your question. I think it's an attitude. When you're questioning somebody with an open style, you want to actually genuinely want to hear whatever they've got to say. You want to be able to convey that I'm here to hear whatever you've got to tell me, and I'm interested in that. And if you don't have that, then you're not going to actually be able to build the rapport that you want. And if a person feels that you're really interested in them and what it is they've got to say, they'll be, I suppose, comforted enough, they'll have enough rapport with you to sort of, bring things out of themselves that you hope that they didn't know they thought or believed, especially if you're going for some of the questions around possibilities for the future or things they've done in the past that might help them in the future.
So when you stop breastfeeding, that's when you start, and you talk about easing the pain. Can you tell me a bit about that, what that's about?
The pain?
Yeah.
It's, I guess I've suffered depression since I was about 13. So most of my teenage years and adult life.
Talking about your sister.
Yeah.
So you're talking about how she says, get over it and pull yourself out of it, all of that kind of stuff. How is that for you?
It can be pretty hurtful. I guess it's the tough love stuff. It's not really working, it's not really helpful.
So being tough about this doesn't help you? No.
No.
Okay. Okay.
And you seem like a sort of guy, because you've done a lot of thinking about this stuff, that's my sense. You're constantly thinking about this. So 22 days, not going back to that lifestyle, means you're actually thinking about that pretty much.
Affirmations is one of the Oars skills, and I utilise it in a way to build on the therapeutic relationship, and in some way it can enhance the person's feelings about what it would be like to change. So what often happens is change talk will follow an affirmation.
What I'm hearing from you is that like you've had depression for a very long time and you've managed it for a long time, and now you just what you're wanting to do is to look at your alcohol use in relation to that. So I see somebody who has reserves.
Yeah.
It's just about how we use them.
Empathic listening, and what we call today reflective listening, is directly connected to the work of Carl Rogers and his client-centered therapy. And for Rogers, empathy was one of the core aspects of helping facilitate change. And empathy has to do with me trying to understand what's going on with you, what life is like for you, because I'll never know. The best that I'll be able to do is understand. And for Rogers, what seemed to make sense was not for me to put my interpretation on what you're saying, but to try to listen to what you're saying and then reflect that back in a way that still fits the integrity of what you said, but also may give you the experience of listening to yourself in a little bit different way. So in motivational interviewing, what we aim for is, if I'm the therapist, that most of the statements that are coming from me are in fact reflections, more so than questions. And this is one way where motivational interviewing shifts from a lot of other therapies where the goal of the therapy is to come up with the right question or lines of questioning or following some sort of Socratic questioning trail in order to get to the end that the therapist wants to achieve. Where in motivational interviewing, we strategically utilize reflective listening or empathic listening in a way in which we're working with the client, paying attention to what they're saying, trying to understand what they're saying, and reflect back on what it is we think that they mean. Let the person know that we're really trying to understand and listen to what they're saying. We want to utilize the reflections almost like we would a question. And one of the interesting things is that the more empathic and the more complex or deep the reflections are, the more people tend to respond by disclosing more information. And using reflections, we can help guide the session, whether it's exploring and resolving ambivalence or reflecting back what somebody has said about their predicament or about changing it or about not changing it. But it gives a more personalized feel to the interaction. There are two different kinds of reflections that we utilize in motivational interviewing. One of them is a simple reflection where we just repeat back what somebody has said. We don't really add any additional meaning or emphasis on what they've said. It's more of an affirmative or just to let them know that we heard what they said. Another one is what we call a complex reflection. In a complex reflection, what we try to do is we try to have some particular emphasis with it, which we might utilize in paraphrasing or rephrasing what somebody has said, using simile, analogy, metaphor, in a way in which it offers the person not a different interpretation of what they said, but maybe a different way of taking a look at it. One of the most common reflections that I hear utilized in motivational interviewing, and that I probably do quite often, is what we call a double-sided reflection. And in this reflection, what we want to do is we want to reflect both sides of an issue. So for example, if it's ambivalence, we want to reflect both sides of the ambivalence and use "and" as the conjunction as opposed to "but." Because typically on the one hand, we're looking at one thing, but on the other hand, we're looking at the other, and the "but" negates what came first. And the thing about ambivalence is it's both at the same time. And I think what this does is it conveys to people that we actually do get it. We actually are trying to understand what it's like for them without trying to interpret what their thoughts or what their feelings might mean. And that they are truly the experts on themselves, and what we're trying to do is help them understand a little bit deeper what's going on with them, and then maybe help them guide the process in the direction of change. And we just found that reflective listening or accurate empathy can be a key element in facilitating not only a good relational foundation, but actually facilitating movement towards the direction of change.
I think it's the questioning part is the starter. The reflection is the follow-on skill, and that's where you can take it where you want it. So that's where you begin to direct it in a sense. You begin to explore with them things that they have told you, perhaps things that have been hidden to them before, things they're unaware of. You can begin to reflect back strengths that you see in them, for example, that they may not actually see as strengths or articulate as strengths, but if you can put a word on it, perhaps, that allows them to hear back something that they've almost said or actually have said in another way. I think that's building a sense of competence. That's where the reflections come in. They do the work of building belief in yourself. Even if they didn't have it before, it's the process that actually gets that going.
Could you tell me a little bit about how much you're drinking and what's going on for you?
I guess I'm probably drinking about 3 to maybe 5 bottles of wine in a week. Yeah, I guess it just kind of eases the pain a little bit.
Okay, so you're drinking to ease the pain?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And between 3 and 5 bottles a week?
Yeah, sometimes more than that.
Sometimes more than that.
Mm-hmm. Maybe even it could just be a start just to cut back.
Okay.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Does that sound like something that you could do, that you could cut back?
Probably not without support.
Okay. What sort of support would you want to do that, or need to have to do that?
Well, I mean, it's hard for me because I'm a solo mum. It's just me and Riley at home. Don't have a partner. My sister's got her own career and her own family. My mum's in a new relationship as well. So I guess, I don't know, I just kind of feel like I'm here by myself. And it's me looking after my son. But I'm kind of like a child as well.
Okay.
I mean, I can't be responsible for a child if I can't be responsible for myself. So I think maybe I need like an adult type figure.
I think what I'm concerned about is what I'm hearing you say is that, you know, you have your child at home, but you feel like a child, and that you don't have any reserves left to support yourself through this.
So it sounds like, and I think this is like many people, you're in two minds. You know, there's part of you that goes, I'm going out, I'm having some drinks, I'm going to have fun. Yep. Awesome. There's part of you as well that goes, well, do I actually, I might stop and think about this for a minute, you know, because of this and this and this. But then it's kind of like, oh, nah, I'm just going to go out. Yeah. And that's, you know, a really normal, I think that's what happens for people when they're thinking about changing something or not changing something, you know.
I haven't got little nuggets of where I could go. I've just got like this feeling that I should go.
Okay.
Somewhere.
Yep. So part of you knows you need to go somewhere different, but the direction doesn't seem to be that clear at the moment.
Yeah.
Summary statements are one of the key counseling skills of motivational interviewing, and they're most often utilized to collect up the most relevant things that the client has said that are going to help them perhaps explore and resolve the ambivalence around change. The summary statements can have a sort of a bouquet quality to them, where I'm listening to a client and they're saying loads of interesting things, and what I'm trying to do is just pick up on the key things that seem to be most relevant to this individual about changing this particular behavior and summarizing that back. I can use summary statements to help develop discrepancy, where I can put together things they might have previously said about the good things and the less good things about changing and pull it together in a summary. Another way of using a summary statement is to sort of demarcate a transition from one place in the interview moving to another place. So if somebody's going from talking about change to maybe wondering or creating a plan to make some change, I can summarize what came before in a way in which we can acknowledge that we've been there and now they're making a decision to move on. The final thing about summary statements is when offering a summary statement to a client, it's really important to check it out for accuracy and just to make sure that your understanding of what they have said matches actually what they intended to say, and it gives them the sort of the editing privileges where they can go back and they can correct you in case you've put something together or tried to explain something to them through a summary statement that wasn't exactly what they meant. Summary statements can be on the longest side, or they could be many summary statements that go on. There's no exact formula of how and when to do summary statements. What we do know is that it's important to make sure that you include them in the context of motivational interviewing to help the transition feel more fluid, as well as to clearly demonstrate to the individual you're working with that you're listening to them and you're trying to follow along.
Sort of just to get a sort of a snapshot, it sounds like, you know, your boss brings you here, you feel like you've been unfairly treated in terms of someone dobbing you in. When we sort of start to unpack that a little bit around your alcohol and drug use, you weren't happy about sort of how much you were spending, and looking at it, when you add the two together, you're spending quite a bit. And but it also works for in terms of your relationship, it actually seems to work to a degree, in that your partner's sort of happier to have you around stoned. And on the other hand, it's affecting your employment and it's costing you a lot of money. Where does that sort of sit with you?
Well, it's not the fact that she likes me being stoned. She just says I'm grumpy and angry when I'm not, really.
So there's something for you about being at a transition stage in your life, or I don't know if you call it a crossroads or what you call it, but some kind of transition or something new that might happen, yeah? And for you, what you're thinking about is, do I have to let these things go that have been a really important part of my life? My friends, the enjoyable times we have together, using alcohol and all of that, yeah? Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
yeah,
that is.
Well, Mike, I really enjoyed listening to your perspective and your story a little bit, and it's helped me a lot get an idea about where you're coming from and a little bit about who you are and what's happened in your past, and we've also talked a bit about what's going to happen next, and you've come up with some great ideas. What I hear you saying is that, you know, before all this, before you met the GP, things were going fine, from what, as you would have, you know, as you'd seen it. You were just doing your thing and getting on, working and being busy and being successful, and then suddenly this diagnosis, this doctor tells you that you've got a problem. And you comes along to me and talk today a bit about how you felt about that. Initially, it's probably quite a bit of a shock. It didn't quite fit with how you saw things.
True.
And as we've been talking, I'm hearing you saying that maybe if you look back to where you were before you went to the doctor, things weren't quite that right.
Developing discrepancy, in my mind, is about taking quite a naive sort of stance. Like, I don't know what's going on, the person needs to tell me. But also drawing out, you know, the things that the person says, this is of value to me, this is important to me. And I suppose where the discrepancy comes in is they're saying, I'm also doing this every day, whatever that might be. And I really enjoy it because I get to take quite a naive stance. I can say, well, I'm a little bit confused because on the one hand, you know, these things are really important. I've heard you talk about this, this and this. But on the other hand, this is going on, and it's hard for me to see how those two things fit together. I guess if the person begins to experience a discrepancy, a sense of, you know, there's something that doesn't fit together here, then that can kind of start creating ambivalence, and ambivalence is obviously the place where people find themselves when they start thinking about change. So what you're describing to me is kind of looking towards the future, yeah? Is that true?
Yeah. Yep.
And the future that you're talking about as a possibility is a home and having kids and, you know, having a partner and that kind of thing, maybe doing some training. My question for you would be, how does alcohol fit with that?
Well, I suppose I don't know. Maybe I think I can have my cake and eat it too. I mean, I probably wouldn't be able to go out as much.
And what does that feel? Thinking about that, what does that feel like for you?
I don't know. I mean, I'd do it because I wouldn't want my kids to maybe see some of the things I know my brother's kids have seen, or
right.
I'd certainly understand that that's not cool. It's not a cool situation for any kid.
And you seem to me then like a person who, you know, is carefully considering how you want the future to be for your children. How you do want it to be.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I've not really thought about it, sat down and had a really good think about it like I am now. I don't know so much what I want for them, but I do know some of what I don't want, maybe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly does. It's important in developing discrepancy not to confuse it with pinning somebody down or saying, well, you do this, but you do this, and how does that work? You know, it's more opening a conversation with the person about the important things in their life and these other things that they're talking about, which, you know, how does that fit together? How does it work? And maybe taking a kind of, I don't understand, can you tell me more about that?
So, if we were to look at the kind of good things about drinking, what would they be?
It, like I said, it takes the edge off. Makes me feel more relaxed. It kind of just blocks everything out, just numbs everything, I guess. That's kind of what I hoped for when I was taking the Prozac.
So you're looking at, in terms of the good things about drinking and alcohol, you were looking for them to do the job that you were hoping the Prozac would do.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the not so good things? What are the things you don't like about it, the drinking?
I guess it kind of makes me a bit more depressed. It ends up being a cycle. So I'm depressed and I drink, and then, you know what I mean? And it's, I don't want my son to see me like that. I don't want him to see me drunk. I don't want him to see me hungover.
Importance and confidence is an important strategy and tool for the clinician to really be getting the feel for where the client is at in their change process. Changing something is important to the person and they have the confidence that they can do it, then change is more likely to take place. So there is a tool that comes along with this, and it's the importance and confidence ruler. It comes in the evoking part or process of what you're doing, and what I have seen happen is it can actually lead on to change talk and reasons for change talk, and then it can lead on to people really searching for tools or skills that are going to help them build confidence to make that change.
I think anything you do, it has to be something you've decided. You know, you start where you want to start. You've mentioned some really good ideas about possibly getting a little bit more exercise into your life, doing something like squash or something of that nature. You've mentioned some really good ideas about reducing the amount of sugar you're intaking during the day, and coffee is a good place to start. Having an apple for breakfast, I think you mentioned that, a bit of fruit.
Yeah, like my wife
Those are
used to.
some really good ideas and good starting points.
Mm.
So what I'm hearing you kind of saying is that you're now starting to think of some very useful little starting points. Not huge changes, but some little things you could do.
Yeah.
And it's kind of dawning on you that maybe some possibilities here for making some changes.
You know, the thing, yeah.
When you're going to offer recommendation advice to an individual about their predicament, the best time to do that is when the window of change is as open, as wide as possible, as opposed to having to feel like you're forcing it through a little bitty crack of somebody being willing to listen to what you have to say. And so one of the strategies we use for giving information in a way that's adherent to the spirit of motivational interviewing is what we call ask, provide, ask. The first thing we do is we ask somebody else what they already know about the solution to their predicament. And then once they've told us what they know, we ask permission to give our advice. And then once we offer what we have to give, we ask them what they think about it. So we want to ask the client what they already know about it with permission, provide some information, and then ask the client again what they think about all the alternatives that are on the table, not just the one that the helper has put forward.
So there's other factors that can
I'm sure you're
play.
going to tell me what they are.
Well, you've mentioned some of the things you know, and one of those is hereditary factors. You mentioned that, the doctor mentioned that. And what else do you know, or have you heard? You say you haven't had a lot of time to do the research, but what else, other things have you?
To be frank, Mark,
do you know
I honestly don't know. I mean, I honestly don't know what causes it, because I've never had any reason. It came upon me from the GP and took me back.
Yeah.
The hereditary thing, I thought, oh well, maybe that's the explanation.
That makes a bit of sense.
And why go any further?
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah.
Can't help it.
Yeah.
They live pretty long lives, you know.
Yeah.
All right.
They managed with it.
Relatively, they went into their 70s. Yes.
Okay. I don't know if it would be helpful for you if you'd like to know a little bit more about some of the factors involved in type 2 diabetes.
Well,
if that would help.
If there's something that you think that, yes, of course.
Can I give you a bit of information about alcohol use and the kind of, troubles that people can have with it? Yeah. There is some ways of thinking about it that says that maybe it is somewhat genetically loaded, if you know what I mean, so that maybe families do tend to have alcohol problems, and I don't think we really know, enough about the reasons why. But I think it is important to know that if you have people in your family who've had alcohol problems, then you are perhaps more likely, to also have some struggles with alcohol.
Well, welcome, Ricky.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
And you found us okay?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Always good.
Have you been here before?
No, not at all.
Okay. All right. Well, I know little about why you're here today, but it's great to see you. And so maybe a good point to start with is, tell me why you're here.
Sure. I guess, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had sort of like this group of friends come around
to my place, and you know, they were sort of saying that it was just like a night to hang out and watch DVDs and stuff, and then they sort of sat me down and were like, you know, maybe you need to get a bit of help for, you know, drug stuff. And, you know, I was sort of like, well, I know I was quite annoyed by that at first, but I suppose, you know, I thought about it for a bit, and then I was like, well, I guess it can't hurt to talk to someone about it, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's led you to being here today?
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah, I just sort of did a bit of search on the internet and stuff, and just heard about this place, so I just thought of...
Right, so it sounds like you thought there was something that that you needed to look at, something that was concerning you.
Yeah, I guess, I suppose I hadn't really thought about it till they sat me down, and then I mean, I could understand a little bit of where they were coming from, so yeah, I thought
They were concerned for you?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Which kind of was a bit of a shock, I suppose.
You were surprised?
Yeah. Yeah, because, you know, I don't know, you know, you see on movies when people sort of intervene or say, you know, you need to go and get help, and I don't know, like, you know those characters, and they do need help, you know, because they're fucked, and you kind of go, well, that's not me, so it's a bit...
You're not sure that applies to you?
Yeah, oh, well, not to that extent, do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't think I was at anywhere near a point that I would need to be sat down and intervened with,
okay,
if you know what I mean.
All right,
I suppose.
As I'm understanding you so far, something's concerning you and something's concerning your friends, but you're not sure whether just how bad it is, and you're just wanting to check that out.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, they are my friends, and you know, I'm not going to be so narrow-minded as to say sure that, you know, they're entirely wrong, because it's a big group of them, you know, and they do care, so obviously there's something there that I might have overlooked, but on the other hand, I'm sort of like, well, was it that bad, you know, was that really necessary? But you know, I thought I'd give them the benefit of the doubt and just check it out. Yeah.
Because they care about you, and you respect what they say, and you're wondering whether something about what they're saying may be right, but let's check that out about.
Yeah, pretty
much.
Right. Yeah.
Well, let's do some checking out.
Okay, cool.
So tell me a little bit about what you're doing. What is the concern that they're raising?
Drugs, I guess. Yeah, it's sort of kind of do a bit of pee now and then, and I guess less often. I do a bit of, you know, smoke a little bit, and party pills in the weekend sometimes.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about what now and again means, and how often.
And couple of times a week, maybe.
Is this with the drug? This is meth you're talking about, and a couple of times a week.
Yep. Yeah. So I guess when I put it that way, it does sound quite a lot, but it doesn't feel a lot, you know, if you know what I mean.
Well, maybe we can check that out, see whether it's a lot, or, but maybe also importantly to to discuss with you what the effects are and what your concerns are about it. But help me to understand a little bit more of what it's like for you. Tell me what are the things about your use of meth that you've liked, that you've found good for you?
I suppose it's kind of hand in hand with just hanging out with sort of this new scene that I've like. I moved to Auckland maybe 3 years ago, and I used to live in Palmy, and so as you can imagine, it's sort of a bit different down there. And kind of just when I first got here, I was sort of introduced a little bit to like, do you know Family Bar on K Road?
I know Family Bar,
yeah,
yes.
just that sort of scene, that kind of gay scene, I guess, and like it's not something I'd really thought about before, but then kind of hung out there and just met these people that were sort of like you don't really get that much in Palmy. Right. Well, I mean, I suppose you do, but they're not. You know, in Auckland, in bars like that, you can just be out in the open. You know, and I suppose in Palmy, you can't as easily. So just to arrive and see that and kind of meet these people that were just really friendly, you know, and not judgmental. I don't know, you know, Palmy often is that sort of like, oh, you gotta own a car and soup it up and drive up and down the main street, and I couldn't give a shit about that, you know, so, or play rugby, and, you know, that didn't interest me at all. And so to come here and have people, you know, talk about interesting stuff and have a good time and just want to go out and dance and stuff like that. That was quite cool for me to know that that existed, because I hadn't seen that before. And then I suppose there's a lot of that goes on there, you know, it's that kind of heavy party scene most weekends and stuff. So it kind of goes hand in hand with that, really. And just, you know, I guess when I have it, it's like, I don't know, you just feel really good, I guess. Just feel like happy and excited, and just to be surrounded by people that, you know, really care about you and love you, and coming from a place where you don't get that as much. It's just really cool, you know, to be able to go, okay, on this day I can take this, and it's just that instant, like, I know I'll feel good. I guess that's part of it.
So Auckland, coming to Auckland from Palmerston for you was like taking charge of something, that you were going to look to make something different in your life. Yeah, in a way, although I wouldn't have been conscious of that, really. I just sort of discovered it here. It's not like I came to Auckland looking for that. I kind of left to get away from, you know, parents mainly, and that kind of lifestyle, that Palmy sort of lifestyle. But then, yeah, I discovered this other thing. Which you weren't aware of in Palmerston? Or?
No.
Okay.
No. I didn't really know. I guess you see sort of things like that in movies from America, you know, but you don't really think that it would exist in your own country. Well, not if you grow up in Palmy.
Palmerston.
I don't mean to be mean about Palmy, but, you know, it's just a different kind of attitude, I guess, down there to that sort of thing.
It sounds like you were ready to move up to something that was different.
Yes.
And you came here to Auckland.
Yeah. I definitely wanted to get away from something. I didn't know what to, but then I arrived here and found this thing that was like, actually, this was obviously fate or whatever was pulling me to this thing, because it's like I found something in myself, or something that was missing.
And how does that feel for you now?
Now, I guess now I'm just sort of used to it. When I first got here, I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is home, I guess. But, you know, it's been 3 years now, so it's just kind of like, I've gotten used to it. I mean, I guess I won't say I'd take it for granted, but yeah, it's just comfortable now. And it's just sort of what I do, really. Yeah, so I guess the drugs are linked to that, I suppose. It's just part of it. I don't really differentiate it. It's just kind of go, okay, I'm going to go out, hang with my friends, and that sort of thing, you know, that Saturday, Friday night thing. And then it just happens, really, as part of that.
So coming out, being gay, being part of a gay culture here in Auckland is feeling good for you. And at the same time, it's linked closely with the drug scene, with the meth scene for you. And you're not experiencing where these two things are separate. They just seem to be together more often than not.
Well, I guess now that I think about it, maybe it's sort of gone beyond that. Maybe I didn't really notice that. I mean, like I always, it's, you know, it's kind of a thing that happens in the weekends, but I guess sometimes in the weekdays, you know, I'll pretty much every weekend I'll have a big night, maybe two, but sometimes, you know, in the weekdays, like on a Tuesday or Wednesday or something, if just kind of feel like doing something, then I might do that. Sometimes see if someone else wants to come round and join me, or, you know, occasionally by myself, I might have a smoke by myself or something like that. And I guess that isn't entirely linked to that scene, I suppose.
So it sounds like something's worrying you about it, that there's a part link there, but there's not a link, and that maybe that the drugs is becoming a more important part in your life.
Maybe. I suppose I hadn't really thought about it until recently.
So something's changed recently.
Yeah, I suppose just since that kind of intervention thing, I started to give them the benefit of the doubt, and then I was maybe noticing some things that I hadn't noticed, but...
Tell me about those things you're noticing that you hadn't noticed before.
Oh, well, I mean, even just now, you know, when you asked me how often.
That surprised you?
Surprised me to think about, you know, when you do stuff and you don't really think about it, but then if someone asks you, you know, how often, and then you kind of have to quantify it, I suppose. It kind of sounds shocking, you know, if I imagine myself sort of saying, I do this, you know, a few times a week. It sounds shocking, but to me, it doesn't feel that way. You know, that's kind of where where it kind of doesn't sit right. That's why I kind of got a bit miffed at my friends a little bit, or I don't know, a bit defensive there, because, you know, it sounds a lot, but it doesn't feel out of control or anything, you know. It doesn't feel... I know people that need to go and see therapists or whatever, you kind of go, oh, they're an addict, you know, their health is really bad and they need urgent help right now, quickly. Well, at least that's kind of the feeling you get. And I don't feel that at all. I don't feel like it's a real urgent thing. So that felt a bit weird.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're worried a little bit about it, and you're going to find out more about it, but you're not going to take on this notion of being an addict or anything as yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
So tell me then, Ricky, what's the other side of the good things that using meth or doing some smoking does for you? Is there a downside to it? Are there problems that you're experiencing?
Yeah. I suppose money's quite a a big thing. Like, I used to have a lot more money sort of last year. I had quite a good job, like quite a regular acting job.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like got quite a lot of money like last year, so it wasn't such a problem then, and I suppose I sort of blew that money a little bit. So now I don't have that acting income coming in as frequently, and I'm working in a cafe, like sort of part-time, and it's not bringing in as much. So now it's kind of like, and sometimes I need to borrow a bit of money or sort of need a bit of help with the rent sometimes.
Quite a lot's changed over the last year from...
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit.
Doesn't sound like it was part of the plan.
No. But, you know, that's the life of an actor, I suppose. Ups and downs. Works and not works.
Sure. It's not a secure profession.
No,
it's hard.
Not. Yeah.
It's hard. But is there, I just wonder, is there a connection at all between the acting and the meth use in terms of the effect of the meth use on your ability to get work?
Could have been a couple of auditions that I didn't do so well in as I could have because of that.
The drug may have had an effect on that?
Maybe. Maybe it's just my general sort of state. I don't know, sometimes I suppose it just kind of weighs on my mind a little bit, like, what am I doing, or why am I spending my money on this? I mean, when it's happening, it's like, this is amazing. You know, you go into places, interesting places, but, you know, I could just as well have saved that money and actually gone to interesting places, I suppose. But I don't know. I wonder if it's having an effect. I don't know. I can't say for sure, but maybe it's not so good for the face. I don't know. I don't know if I look tired or run down, or if I actually am tired or run down. I suppose, again, this is things that I haven't really thought about.
Right.
But now I am starting to think about.
Right. And they're good questions to ask. So you're beginning to think about those things and what effects they may have on you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the choices that you might have about it.
Yeah.
What else? So the problem around the use of money, you know, the choices that you make around money, and the meth use has taken up quite a lot of the money.
over the last year, and maybe also the effect on your job and being able, maybe you're not auditioning as well as you might.
Yep.
And maybe the effects also on your physical appearance. An interesting question around the effect of meth use on physical appearance. So, are there any other problems, any other things that are a bit of a downside to this?
Well, I guess it's obviously having some sort of effect on my friends and my flatmates. Because, you know, they sat me down and said, look, you got to look into this or else we can't hang out anymore.
And that's a problem?
That would be a problem, yeah.
Why?
If they didn't want to hang out, well, then what have I got, I suppose?
They're important.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, part of it, part of it, I just wonder, because, you know, a lot of those friends that sat me down are obviously the ones that are not part of that scene. I mean, there were a couple there that are, but mostly they were the ones that sort of have always sort of been a bit judgy. You know, like when I first started all this stuff, you know, and clearly there wasn't a problem, like, because I used to be that guy as well, you know, like, no, I would never do that because it's bad. And then you try it the first time and you go, actually, it's not that bad. It's not the end of the world. If you're sensible with it, then it's not going to be, you know, you have to take a stupid amount to do any kind of like, or, you know, to die or to end up in a hospital. So it's provided you're not stupid with it, then it's just a bit of fun. But you can't really explain that to people who have their walls up. So it's hard not to sit in this room full of people kind of going, oh, you know, you really should stop the drugs, they're bad. It's like, well, actually, you don't know what you're talking about.
But Ricky, let me just check, because I may have got this wrong, just check with you that there are some friends that you've got who do use, who are still concerned about you. Did I get that right from what you said earlier, that those who are concerned about you and were part of this intervention, some of them use?
Yep. Yeah.
And you, so they have their concerns, and you are beginning to ask questions of this use as well. And it's just that we're going to try and drill down a little more into, just to pick up for you what you think might be going on and what you think might be some of the options for you.
Yep.
And we're going to leave labels and all that kind of stuff aside, because, you know, I'm picking up from you that that's not what that's about. I'm happy with that. What do you think will happen? What might happen if you continue your use as you are now? What concerns do you have about not making any kind of change?
Well, I suppose the acting thing is a really big concern.
Right.
Because I want that to be my job. You know, I'm fucking sick of cafes.
This is going to be your career. This is the career you want to make.
I'd like it to be, yeah.
It's harder when you're trying to create your career, get that going. You've got to be at your top pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, it's all, you know, it's partly luck and partly being at the right place at the right time. And if you're at the right place and at the right time and you're just not on your game, then that could have been it.
Yeah, and maybe the meth use is compromising that.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, and I suppose also like money is linked into that as well, you know. I'm not doing as many courses and stuff as I used to be doing because, you know, don't have the money.
All right, so it's back to the money thing again, which is...
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously I don't want to keep pissing my flatmates off.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not cool to not pay the rent, obviously. It's not something I'm happy with.
That creates problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to be that person.
Let's just come back to another thing that we were talking about a little bit earlier, and it's around your meth use as well, and with your gay friends and with gay lifestyle. And it sounds like you're saying that when you party, when you're going to the clubs, when you're being with friends, that the meth use is always there.
Yeah.
The availability of it is there. And
yeah.
And everyone, most people are using.
Yeah, not necessarily P or whatever, but yeah, most people are doing something. Yeah. I suppose, yeah, it's kind of part of that scene that there's not a huge, like, you know, you go to normal bars and most people are just drunk and wasted and like spewing everywhere and stuff, and whereas that's a different scene, like people drink but they don't drink to that excess, but they take other things and have a good time. And yeah.
And it might be hard to be part of that scene and not to be using drugs.
Yeah. I mean, there are people that do that. I suppose it would be hard. I haven't really thought about it, I suppose. It's all I've known that scene to be, you know, because I'm quite new to it. And
Right.
so from the beginning it was always that.
So there is a possibility that there are other parts of the scene that don't rely on drug use,
Yeah.
or particularly on meth use.
Well, yeah, well there must be. I can't imagine everyone is that. I guess just the majority,
Yeah.
or at least the majority of the people that I know, yeah.
So that might be something that we can look at a bit later if you're interested in, is maybe what are some of those other parts of the gay scene who still party and party madly, but where
Yeah.
meth is not a dominant
Yeah.
factor in that partying. And where there are gay groups that support people who are not wanting to have a lifestyle that is heavily weighted to drug use. So there are some options there to look at, some other ideas that if you're interested in, we might look at that for you to think about, to consider. So it's not about giving up anything, it's not about huge major changes, it's about how can I improve a situation.
Yep.
That's what I'm hearing you say, be a little bit more in control of what's going on for me.
Yep.
So that I can pursue that plan. What could be a first step towards that?
Well, I must say I was a bit, you know, at the start when I was sort of saying, oh, you know, this is how often I do it, and then I found myself talking about the kind of the weekday stuff. I kind of took myself back a bit there. I suppose, you know, on a Wednesday by yourself, like, it doesn't sound that good.
So that needs some thinking about, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As to what would work for you as an alternative.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think you're right about just something to look forward to, because that's that midweek slump, you know. It's so far away till people will be in that place where they can hang out and have a good time.
Yeah. And there are things that got to work for you, so that it's
Yeah.
your ideas on there which are really important. But again, there are some options that if you wanted to look at, you know, just to at least to be able to know what they are. Because there are clubs and there are groups and there are all kinds of things that meet through the week.
Yeah.
And so, though they're not going to be necessarily like the party scene, they are other activities. I'm talking about gay groups and gay activities, which are an option that, you know, good to know about, and maybe within those options is something you might say, oh yeah, give that a go, have a look.
Yeah, yep.
All right, Ian. So what were your thoughts about the session with Ricky?
I think it went reasonably well. He's obviously feeling quite ambivalent about his drug use. It's something that he's not wanting to give up. It's very part of his new identity, newish identity that he's come into in Auckland, and so a little bit of work will need to be done down the line, I think, and just starting to separate that out a bit if he can pick up some viable alternatives. But he's concerned. It's not all working perfectly. There are losses and compromises because of his drug use, and hopefully out of that session he will be looking to try and reconcile the Ricky he wants to be and the Ricky he wants to be achieving things with Ricky using meth, and that maybe there's a discordance between the two. If we've got that point, I think that would be a good outcome.
Yeah, there was a theme of developing discrepancy throughout the interview. Was that one of the things that you were consciously thinking about?
Well, I think given his ambivalence, he obviously was not wanting to consider stopping meth use. So we are going to be living with meth, and at least in the meantime. So to try and get him to look at change, I think a discrepancy had to be developed. The discrepancy was a little light on, I think. It wasn't, you know, nice and dramatic as one sometimes wishes it would be, just to really make the point clear. But I think hopefully enough discrepancy was established to just put that stone in his shoe a little bit, so that over the next week he will be thinking about, yeah, these two things aren't sitting together so well. I wanted to Ricky is articulate, as you say, and he's a thinker. And so I didn't want to push too far ahead. There was a point at which I wanted to stop, to let him just think, to go away and reflect on the things he had been saying. But I still needed something to bring him back the next time. So then I introduced, well, look, let's just look at that midweek thing, because that's what he identified as a first step for change. And let's look at what some other options might be. And you just take a record of how much you're using. So that's as far as the planning. But I didn't want to move. This guy needs to think and reflect. And then I would think that Ricky would come back next week and we would move on quite quickly onto looking at changes that might be made. Or he may say he doesn't want a bar of it. But I think he's worried enough to want something different.
Something's different now after having the conversation. And I think he made that pretty clear, that with his comments of, I haven't thought about that, or I've never really put these things together.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it's good sometimes to let people be at that stage. If you move on, then they move on too, and you really want them to think about that, so it's not a bad point at which to make a bit of a break. Give them something to do. But don't try and get a commitment to a change so early on. Let them do that internal reflection, and then when they come back, then you can affirm their reflecting, and then you can look for that, develop that change talk more.
So even though the immediacy of this problem in his life is there wasn't that sense of urgency to jump in and fix it for him.
No. Okay. He'll fix it.
That would be the
He'll
hope.
fix it.
Ricky, so how did that go for you? How did that session go?
Really good, I think.
What did you like about it? What was helpful?
I was concerned coming in that, I don't know, it would be someone that was going to sit me down and tell me, this is what you need to do, and let me tell you about your life, and because I kind of had that from my friends. That's sort of what they did, and it didn't really sit so well with me because they kind of sort of were telling me the way things were, whereas this was more asking for a start, and then and he never sort of said, you know, like I could see what he was doing, and I liked that if he wanted to say something, he'd kind of say it in a way, and he picked up on things that I was saying and building on that rather than imposing anything, I guess.
Okay, so it was helpful that he was actually listening to you and not
Yeah.
bossing you around or
Exactly.
or laying down the law.
Yeah, exactly, and like it seemed to come from a place of someone who, you know, wanted to help, because I mean, you can always go, some therapists, it comes across as someone cares for you kind of thing, but they sort of play it too much, or it doesn't seem genuine, whereas you know, he's just asking, you know, so there wasn't any sort of fake kind of care. It was someone who just was interested in, could see certain patterns and just was reflecting that back, you know, so that was
and that's what you
simple.
found helpful, that he was listening to you, reflecting back what he was seeing and starting to, what I think y'all said, link things up a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I certainly realised a lot of stuff that, I mean, when my friends sat me down, I realised a few things, but also I felt really quite, not defensive, I just felt like attacked a little bit.
Yeah.
But here I realised a whole lot of stuff, and it just kind of came organically just by asking questions, and then I just realised that, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so where to from here for you, Ricky? What do you think? You're leaving the session today.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think the next week's going to go before your next appointment? What are your thoughts about that?
I don't know. I like the idea of meeting up again and it being sort of like a bit of a long-term thing. It kind of freaks me out to kind of go, right now is the time and all the stuff needs to happen. That would kind of put a bit of pressure on me, which wouldn't be good. So I just need to have a think about a few things, I think, and that have kind of come up, you know, and that'll just happen naturally. And I, you know, like he suggested, that I write down how much and frequency and stuff like that. And I'm going to try and do that because it'll be interesting. But just give me a sheet of some possible places to look. You know, sort of clubs and stuff like that, or, you know, just meeting people in the middle of the week, which I'll sort of look at as well.
Okay.
Maybe.
So how are you today?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Find your way okay?
Yes, the directions are pretty good.
Oh, good. Excellent. So, you know, welcome along.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming. Do you want to talk to me a little bit about why you're here?
Well, it's probably fair to say that it's my partner, Rob, is the one that has asked me to come today. He's been, I guess, a little bit frustrated with some of my behaviour lately, so yeah, he suggested that this was probably a good place for me to start.
Okay. Yep. Yep. And how are you feeling about that?
A bit a little bit mixed. I have mixed feelings about this situation. Basically, he's expressed concern about my drinking, and I guess it sort of kicked off last week. We had a bit of an incident last week at a party, and he got really angry, and I guess for the first time I realised that he was quite upset that my drinking was affecting him and upsetting him. And I guess this is the first time that I'd really took that on board. I tend to think he's overreacting a bit. I think that we've been big social people for a long time. We've done this for a long time, and he's overreacting, but he's important to me, and so I thought I would take this next step.
Okay. So there's a lot of feelings flying around. Seems like, and you're recognising that he's feeling frustrated and upset, and that's to do with your behaviour and your drinking. Yeah. You also kind of feel like he's overreacting, and you've got mixed feelings about being here and what's going on.
That'd be about right.
Yep. Okay. Yep. That's pretty clear. So if you had your own reason for being here, not somebody else's, what would it be?
I suppose I've gotten to that stage where I've been thinking about what he said, and I think he wants to move. I know he definitely wants to move to the next step. You know, he's gotten himself a really good job. He's just been made partner in a building company, and things are going really well for him. And he wants to start saving for a house. Yeah, I think he's sort of starting to talk about perhaps getting married and looking at a family and all that sort of stuff. And I guess that's part of me really, really wants that as well. I think we're ready, but I'm just so I like our life. I like being able to get out and have a few drinks and have a laugh and wake up at 11 o'clock the next morning and and I guess I don't work. I don't have a formal job. I did a little bit of training as a hairdresser, and I work from home. I cut a few friends hair, and I managed to scrape enough money together to pay bills and things like that. And I suppose it's just that next step. Do I want to give up the sort of freedom that I have, the fun that I have when I'm out with my friends, when I'm out socialising? Am I ready to take that next step with Rob, I suppose? And I'm just sort of there. I don't really know.
So it seems like you're a person who wants certain things in life, and on the one hand, it's kind of things like a home and maybe getting married and some children and that kind of stuff. But on the other hand, you're also a person who wants to feel like you're enjoying your life and just doing what you want to do and that kind of stuff.
I mean, I'm not hurting anybody. I'm having a great time. I'm still. I suppose I do have a couple of friends that have gotten married and things like that, and I suppose that's weighing on me as well. But I like the way things are going, and I think we've had a couple of instances where perhaps it's gone a bit too far. I guess I would be talking about my drinking. Okay. It's sort of turned to custard a couple of times, but we've managed to get through it, and yeah, I suppose. I don't know if I'm ready to take that next step, and he is wanting me to look at some of the ways I've been living, I suppose. Okay. And I've been living well and happily.
Yeah. So when you've referred a couple of times to things going to custard or having an incident, and it seems to be around when you've been using alcohol.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like what goes wrong, what happens?
Well, I suppose the first time I really thought he was starting to get pissed off at me was we went to a pub and I had a few drinks. Well, I mean, we all had a few drinks. That's what we do. And I had perhaps got a little too drunk, and one woman just racked me up completely, and we got into a little bit of an altercation over the fact that I thought that she was hooking into Rob, I suppose you could call it. I don't know how else you'd put it.
Yeah.
And I was kicked out of the pub. I don't really remember.
Yeah.
I was kicked out of the pub. My friends took me out. Rob was furious, and I was banned for a couple of months. And I suppose that's maybe the first time that I've felt that I kind of I lost control.
Yeah. So that's how you felt.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Not how somebody else felt, but how you felt.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be the first time I really felt that.
When did that happen?
It would have been last year, but
okay.
Yeah, it's sort of 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's it been like since then? I mean, you had an incident last week, but what's that kind of 6 months been like for you in alcohol?
Well, I've carried on. I've put it behind me, and I've just carried on. And Rob, you know, we moved on from it, and it was a bit of I thought it was a bit of a laugh after all that. I thought it was a laugh. And Rob kind of moved on. He's been busy with this new business and everything.
Yeah.
So, but I suppose it was the beginning. I think it was the beginning of me thinking maybe there's more to life than this. Maybe I need to grow up. Maybe I need to just stop being the party girl and knuckle down. And we had another situation which sort of happened a little bit after that as well, where I'd had a few drinks at home and we'd run out, and I got in his car, and it was a new car, he didn't want me to, and I scratched all down the side of it, going out to get some more wine.
All right, scraped the car up against something.
Yeah.
Right.
And I suppose the two things happened in relatively quick succession. So
the incident in the pub and the right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was his reaction then when the car got scratched?
He was pretty pissed off.
Right.
Actually.
How did you feel about it?
I felt terrible.
Right.
I felt terrible.
Okay.
I didn't mean to do that.
No, most people don't intentionally scratch a new car. Yeah. Of course not. Yeah. And did you think at the time that it happened because maybe you'd had a couple drinks, and was that why it happened?
I thought I was okay. I thought I was okay.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, hindsight's a great thing, isn't it?
For sure. Yeah.
And I shouldn't have been. Shouldn't have been behind the wheel.
Okay. So you referred to growing up. Maybe I should grow up. Maybe I should. What would that mean to you, growing up?
Well, I don't know. What does it mean, growing up? I guess settling down with Rob. You know, and he wants me to maybe finish off the diploma I started with hairdressing, because I did do a couple of courses after I'd been travelling.
Yep.
And I couldn't really be bothered to finish it at that stage, but he'd really like me to finish that. And I'm sort of at that stage now where I'd have to go back and, you know, be around a whole bunch of 20-year-olds, and sort of, you know, I'm 33, so I'm a bit reluctant to do that. I don't know whether that's really what I want to do. I think that might be the next step that I should take, but I don't know if I'm ready there as well. Maybe I could slow down on the drinking.
Would that be part of growing up, as it were?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I know he wants to move on to the next step, and I think he sees me maybe slowing down as part of the next step and growing up.
Okay. So that's how Rob sees it. Yep. For him, kind of taking your relationship to a new level and moving on together and kind of somehow growing up together would part of that would be you slowing down your alcohol use, right?
Yeah.
And what do you think about that?
I mean, he makes a really good point.
What is it? What's good about that point?
Well, I would like to have a family. I'd like to settle down. I'd like to settle down. But I've got a really good group of friends, and we have such a good time together. And I feel good when I drink. I don't drink a lot. I mean, I'm not an alcoholic. My brother has been,
right,
and I've seen him struggle with it. I've seen him lose everything. I've seen him work through that, and that's not where I'm at. So I think I've got it under control.
Yeah.
And I kind of think that I can carry on. Maybe I could slow down a bit, but I don't think I need to lose that part of me.
Right.
Okay. Just so that we can move to the next step.
Yeah,
I'm having that.
So there's something for you about being at a transition stage in your life, or I don't know if you call it a crossroads or what you call it, but some kind of transition or something new that might happen. Yeah. And for you, what you're thinking about is, do I have to let these things go that have been a really important part of my life? My friends, the enjoyable times we have together, using alcohol and all of that. Yeah, is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is.
And you also see that, you've got an important family member who's had very serious trouble, it sounds like, with alcohol. Yeah, and that kind of makes you feel like, well, I haven't got those kind of troubles. Yeah.
I don't want to have those kinds of troubles either.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want that for myself.
Yeah. So what you're describing to me is kind of looking towards the future. Yeah. Is that true?
Yeah. Yep.
And the future that you're talking about as a possibility is a home and having kids and having a partner and that kind of thing. Maybe doing some training. My question for you would be, how does alcohol fit with that?
Well, I suppose I don't know. Maybe I think I can have my cake and eat it too. I mean, I probably wouldn't be able to go out as much with a family. It would be harder to do that, I guess. But I think.
So your social life might change.
Yeah. It probably would have an effect on that.
Yep.
I mean, Rob understands having a good drink. I'm sure that we could make something work. But yeah, I guess it would change things. I certainly don't think it would affect any kind of training. I mean, hairdressing would be relatively easy, but probably having kids.
Yep.
It would.
Yep.
Would change.
Yeah. And what does that feel? Thinking about that, what does that feel like for you?
I don't know. I mean, I'd do it because I wouldn't want my kids to maybe see some of the things I know my brother's kids have seen, or
right.
I certainly understand that that's not cool. It's not a cool situation for any kid.
And what's your chief concern been for your brother's children?
Well, there was a lot of anger. I mean, his wife ended up leaving him. There's lots of. They saw arguments that they perhaps wouldn't have had. They'd have not been drunk. And I saw that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I definitely wouldn't want that for my kids.
Yeah.
So I guess I'd have to look at the drinking side of things.
And you seem to me then like a person who, you know, is carefully considering how you want the future to be for your children. How you do want it to be.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I've not really thought about it, sat down and had a really good think about it like I am now. I don't know so much what I want for them, but I do know some of what I don't want, maybe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly does. Yeah. So what's it like for you having this kind of conversation? Because like you say, you don't sit down every day and talk about all this kind of stuff with someone you haven't met before.
Yeah, it's weird.
What does it make you think about?
I suppose it's making me maybe look at it a little more closely. I mean, I suppose the times that I have thought about it myself, I suppose to a certain degree I've kind of gone out and just ignored it to a certain degree and just sort of gone out with my mates again. Yeah, I can certainly think of instances where I have thought a little too hard about it and just went, oh, it's just too hard. It's much more fun having fun.
Right.
And sort of thinking about the future sometimes.
Yep. So it sounds like, and I think this is like many people, you're in two minds. You know, there's part of you that goes, I'm going out, I'm having some drinks, I'm going to have fun. Yep. Awesome. There's part of you as well that goes, well, do I actually, I might stop and think about this for a minute, you know, because of this and this and this. But then it's kind of like, oh, nah, I'm just going to go it. Yeah. And that's, you know, a really normal, I think that's what happens for people when they're thinking about changing something or not changing something, you know. It's kind of...
I sort of flip-flop. I go backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards.
Right, yeah.
And I sometimes just don't know what I want.
Yeah, yep.
Out of it all, I don't know, what I want. And then I just think, well, what does Rob want? Sometimes it's just easy to do it like that.
Yeah. And what does he want? I mean, are you clear?
Yeah, he's been pretty clear.
Okay.
He's been pretty clear.
So there's nothing else that you haven't already told me?
No, we've I mean, we used to drink together all the time, but he's really sort of knuckled down in the last year, particularly. And sometimes I've kind of been a bit down on him because he seems like such a boring old bastard.
Okay.
So
a possible thing. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, I think he just wants the best. I'm not too sure if that. Yeah, I'm not too sure if that's the best that I want as well.
Yeah. If you did choose your best future, what do you think it would look like?
Best future. I don't know. I've never thought of it like that. A best future. No, I've never thought of it. I guess I'd like a bit more money.
Okay, that would be part of a best future.
Best future, like I'd like to keep my friends. I'd like to have my friends for the rest of my life because they're what makes me feel good.
They're really important to you, right? Yeah.
Really important.
Okay. So there's uncertainty for you.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. If you were to, you know, you've been so generous today in talking to me about all these things that are going on in your life, you know, and it sounds like it's all really on your mind. Yeah. You're not here to talk about something trivial. You're here to talk about important things, right? your partner and how you do things together and things that have happened in the past and thinking about the future. Yeah. If you were to think about that best future, that you've got you do have a picture of it, I think. You do have a picture of it. If you were to think about even one step that you could take towards that best future or better future or new future, I'm not quite sure what to call it. Can you think of anything that would be?
Towards this best future?
Yeah, even a slight movement towards it.
I think I could consider going back to tech and picking up where I left off. I don't see myself being able to do anything else.
Yeah.
So, and I like hairdressing. I like cutting hair. And I know I'm pretty good at it.
You're good at it.
My friends keep coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that could be a good step for me, and I know that's something that Rob would probably support wholeheartedly.
Great. So that's something to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Because alcohol has got got a role in the reason that you're here. Is there anything about you and alcohol going forward that you're thinking about? Are things going to stay the same? Are you going to drink more? Are you going to, have you got any thoughts about that?
Well, I don't think I'd drink any more. I mean, I don't want to feel like I might be messing up a bit with Rob and the drinking, so I mean, I could maybe not go out as much. I mean, we could go out a lot. I could maybe cut down on the few nights out.
Yep. So would you normally go out 5 nights a week?
Yeah. 6. Wednesday would generally be at drinking night at home, but we'd go out Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yep.
Yeah. Till quite, and have big nights.
Big nights out, yeah.
I mean, I just don't want to lose that social side of it. I don't want to lose those friendships that I make when when we go out. I don't want to lose that. But maybe I could, I don't know, do some more entertaining at home, or...
Yep.
I don't know.
Not sure.
Not sure.
Can I give you a bit of information? One of the things I notice about people who come in here and, who drink a lot of alcohol or smoke a lot of weed or whatever it is that they do, they often carry real fear about what would happen if they made some kind of change to that. Yeah. And what I notice is that people don't lose all their friends, I think worst fears have a way of not necessarily coming true just because a small change is made. Yeah. So I hear what you're saying though.
Yep.
That's the fear, right? That things will change so dramatically for you that, and it's not just about changing alcohol, it's about doing more training and all those things you're talking about.
I hear what you're saying. I suppose it is a bit of it's a big concern.
Yeah.
As losing those friendships and...
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying.
Okay. So one of the things you think you could do is maybe having nights at home rather than going out for very big nights in pubs or clubs or...
Yep. I know Rob would like that.
So maybe it's something to think about in the coming week. And would you be interested in coming back and talking about any thoughts that you have during the week, any more ideas that you might have had, or?
I think so. I'd have a good chat to Rob about some of the stuff we've talked about, maybe.
Yep.
I mean, it's been good to get it out there and not have it sort of churning around and going backwards and forwards.
Right.
Maybe I could be having some of these conversations with Rob as well.
Yep.
Would that be helpful, do you think?
Well, what kind of things would you want to talk to him about?
I guess talking about I like this idea of best future. I like that idea.
Right.
And maybe...
That was your idea.
No, it was your idea.
You said best future, I think. Anyway.
It was a good idea.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah. So maybe I could talk to him about that.
And to me that would be a little bit of a change, because what you described before, I think, was thinking about changing alcohol, thinking about, training and all the stuff, and going, oh, now I'll just go out and have some drinks, So saying actually to Rob, I'd really like to talk about this future, this possible future, that sounds like a change to me. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's something you might be doing differently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. Well, I vote we make a time to meet again next week.
Another week.
We can make it a week. We can make it a fortnight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can come and tell me if you've had any more good ideas.
Yeah. That sounds good.
All right, Carol.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for participating in this project, and I'd just like to ask you a couple questions about your experience in the interview.
Sure.
So, how did that go for you?
I thought she was terrific as a woman. Me being a woman, I thought she was. Great. I thought she really listened to me. She didn't make me feel stink.
Yeah.
She gave me some really good ideas. I loved that whole thing of best future. I've never thought of it like that. She gave me just a different perspective, a different way of looking at it. And I have been going backwards and forwards. And I don't think I'm ready to make decisions yet. But it's sort of out there on the table, and it's been fed back to me in a way that I can maybe process it a bit better.
Okay. And was that a surprise to you to have that kind of interaction where you felt understood? And
yeah. In one session, in that amount of time, for sure, yeah. Things became clearer, just that little bit clearer to me. Maybe I'm not ready to make all those big decisions that obviously I need to be making, but she gave me things that I can take away and think about and talk about with my partner.
And I can imagine it'd be a pretty big deal for you to show up today to meet with a drug and alcohol counselor.
Yeah. I didn't want to come.
Yeah.
I didn't want to come. I did it for Rob, but I didn't. I still think he's overreacting a bit, but she sort of made me look at my drinking a little bit differently.
Put it in a little different context.
Yeah. And talking about a future and where drinking sits in my future, I've never thought to think of, drinking is for the here and the now. It's a good time. It's about friendships, and it's about being, totally in the moment. And I never thought about it as a future. I suppose now I am.
Yeah. So that was helpful to you to take a look down the road a little bit.
Yeah.
And see how things are kind of maybe not lining up right now, but could be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Is there anything that Rebecca could have done or been a different way that would have been more helpful to you?
No, I don't think so. I can't think of anything now. There was never any moment where I felt uncomfortable or that I was being judged or that she was making me say things just so that I was saying things.
Yeah.
I really felt like she connected really well with me, and as I said, I didn't want to be here.
Do you think it would have been helpful if she would have pushed you a little bit harder or challenged you a little bit more around your drinking?
No, I would have bailed.
You'd have bailed?
I'd have bailed.
Okay.
Yeah, she pushed too hard, I would have gone no.
Okay, because you didn't particularly want to be here in the first place.
I really felt it was an overreaction, and if she had pushed me, I would have been justified in that. Everyone's just leaping around thinking it's hideous and what I'm doing is wrong, but she didn't do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Was there anything else you'd like to share with us before we finish up this part?
No.
All right.
No, not particularly.
Well, thanks again, Carol.
Thank you.
Rebecca.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for participating in our project here.
Pleasure.
I'd just like to have a quick chat with you about your thoughts about how the interview with Carol went.
Yeah, sure. Well, it felt quite easy, felt like there was a good kind of connection there, and yeah, just exploring what she was here for, and it was good. It felt, quite easy. Yeah.
In regards to the motivational interviewing, were there any particular strategies or approaches that you were moving towards or leaning in the more direction of?
I was just very conscious of letting her tell me why she was here, and not getting into too much interpretation or that kind of stuff, and obviously engaging with her, evoking, I suppose, getting her story, and trying to focus.
Yeah.
And on because there's a lot of stuff to talk about, and giving information, but getting permission first, obviously.
Yeah.
What did you see me do?
Well, what was pretty clear to me, Rebecca, was that you were trying to give her space.
Yeah.
To talk about what seemed to be most important to her, without just trying to hammer home the negative consequences of her drinking.
Sure. Yeah, seemed pretty clear to me that she was probably going to continue drinking. She wasn't saying, "I'm in here, I'm having troubles, I got to quit." She really wasn't saying that to me. So, yeah, I wanted to give her some ideas, or not so much give her, but see if there were ideas about maybe some little changes she could make. Yeah. But she did. She had that future focus, So that makes things, that makes it like you've got something to work with, I suppose, when people they think there's actually something else that they want.
When they can envision a better future, or a different future.
And she used that lovely phrase, I think she said best future. I don't think I made it up. I'm sure she said best future.
It stuck either way.
Yeah, either way it stuck, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was good.
Yeah. Anything that you, and kind of reflecting back a little bit, anything that you might have done differently or wish you had another shot at?
I suppose sometimes for me it's easy to get stuck in a bit of a, I don't know, maybe being a little bit too fearful of, saying, well, is there something that you would change about that, or, but then you get stuck on a kind of roundabout of just keeping on talking on about what's been going on, yeah, so.
So when to be directive and when to be more guiding and following.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to err on the side of being bossy.
Yeah, that's right. I suppose it's kind of having a little bit of courage and trusting that, it's okay to say to people, well, is there something that you want to change about? It sounds like there might be something you want to change about that, or, however you phrase it.
Yeah, that's where that summary came in real handy, when you kind of acknowledged all those key points she was struggling with, and then kind of reminded her, by the way, this is a drug and alcohol service.
Yeah. So shall we have a little think about that?
Because all the other issues are going to be there if you can engage with her. And you reckon she'll come back next week?
Kind of seemed like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she seemed, I think so. Hopefully with some more ideas.
Yeah.
I liked it that she said, oh, maybe I need to actually talk to, to my partner about some of these things. It's like, it's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, makes it more real, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right. And in regards to the session and thinking about motivational interviewing, do you feel comfortable and happy with it?
Yeah, I think that at least some of what I was doing was motivational interviewing. So that's good, Yeah, I think it was good. I didn't get that uncomfortable sense that I was, too far ahead of her or in a different place or going in a different direction, that you can sometimes get if you, I don't know, get a bit distracted or, I felt like I was, pacing along with her, and so that felt good.
It seemed like a nice demonstration of motivational interviewing.
Oh,
to me.
thank you.
Stayed on to good engagement, focused on what it is she wants to change.
Yep.
She was willing to talk a lot, come up with her own ideas in terms
She
of
did talk a lot,
evoking,
that was
and
great.
even accepted a bit of a plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And committed to doing it, at least talking to her partner.
Yep. And making another appointment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a wonderful job to me.
Thank you.
So, hi Peter, I'm Ali. I'm one of the nurses that does assessments for detox, and you've walked into the clinic today, so how can I help you?
Well, I'm really after a little bit of help with my drinking, actually.
You want some help with your drinking? Okay, well you've come to the right place. We're quite expert here in helping people, you know, sort out their problems and get on with their lives.
Okay.
Does that, how does that sound?
Yeah, sounds okay.
Okay, okay. So I'd like to start with asking you a few questions about what brought you in here today. Was there something that happened that you came in?
It's just got to the point with things where the wife has sort of laid down a bit of an ultimatum that if things don't change, then you know, she might fly the coop, so to speak. So.
So you're having just a little bit of trouble at home?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, and so that's a concern for me.
So why do you think you're having trouble at home?
Well, lately work's been a bit on the ground, and I've been drinking a bit, as you do when you're got a bit of free time. But it has got to the point where Nick has said she's had enough, really, with the whole thing.
Okay.
We have 3 kids, and it's quite hard work for her. And she said she might as well be on her own if I'm going to go. So that's, as I say, is a concern for me.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? Do you think that's fair? You know, what she's sort of saying about you drinking?
I think that the fact that it's a problem for her means it's a problem for me, but if it was just me on my own, yeah, I'm kind of okay with it, but yeah, I also, it's difficult for me to think about how it would be without her around, so that could, yeah, I guess I'd rather take some steps and then contemplate the possibility of, you know, her doing a runner. And she seems, I mean, she seems pretty serious.
So she's quite important to you?
Yeah, yeah, and my kids are very important to me.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. Okay, so like I said, I'm a nurse, and this is we do assessments. So I'm going to ask you a few questions about your drinking.
Okay.
Okay, because it sounds like you're drinking quite a bit at this stage in your life.
Great.
So when did you start drinking?
When I was, you mean, when did I have my first drink? Or
yeah.
Under the house, in my parents' house, a big warm bottle of DB when I was about 10.
Right.
Didn't like it much.
No?
No.
No. Okay. And so from that warm bottle of DB under the house when you were 10, what happened? Did you drink a lot as a
Yeah, I think just like everyone, I went out and worked on a farm when I was 15, and there was a lot of drinking, a lot of smoking. They grew their own weed down the back garden. So a bit of a pattern developed there of smoking and drinking at the same time, and which was, well, it was a very full-on couple of years for me. And I got out of that and actually got a trade a few years down the track. Did a bit of travelling in Australia.
So what's your trade?
Cabinet maker.
Okay.
And there's a lot of cabinets being made in Indonesia currently, so there's less demand for it than there used to be, and not to mention IKEA. Pray God they never move here. So
I hear that's quite a good store.
It's a good store if you're Swedish and you make it over there, yeah.
Not so good for you, huh?
No, it's been tough with the recession because there's a plant that I was working out by the airport and they had to close down. But you know, I've always enjoyed the drinking and a tremendous amount, and I love. I just like those good times. I just like having enough drinks that something goes pop in your head and you can chill out and. You know.
Yeah, so drinking something you like doing makes you feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And I'm a fit guy, and it's always worked for me.
Okay, so
in that way,
what you're saying is you've sort of drunk for a long time and you enjoy it.
Yeah.
So when did you think it became a problem? Because it's obviously a problem at the moment for you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I suppose as soon as I said it, I thought that's a little historical because what happened when I met Nick when we got married was that her focus did become, our focus did become more on the kids. But slowly over a period of time, that's meant that she's really almost stopped drinking. She was a big breastfeeder, you know, baby wearing hippie type. We live in Huapai and there's a lot of that out there, and that's all good.
You live where, sorry?
Huapai.
Oh, hippie territory.
Yeah, a bit of that out there. That's all right. She's great, but in the end, she breastfeeding for so long that you know she's just kind of got out of the habit.
So you've got no one to drink with?
Well, it just means that she's not into it as much as she used to be. So she doesn't have.
So she's on your case.
I mean, she tried to get me to stop drinking when she was pregnant because she had to stop drinking.
Right.
And I think she saw herself. She saw her behaviours that suddenly she saw. Wow, that's what I'm like when I'm pissed. She called me a drunken old warthog one night, one memorable night, and I was thrown into the granny flat for the night. But anyway,
thank God you've got a granny flat.
Yeah, that's pretty handy. It would be better than getting a rent out of it. I'm down there at the moment. I'm in Coventry. But so I guess that was the major change, and I think that plus the fact that it's been a tough time for me for work, and she's actually had to go back to work part-time. She hates doing that with the kids. And there's just been a couple of incidents with the kids where I've missed picking up someone from school, but because I haven't felt sober enough to drive. And it's all been a bit chaotic, and on one memorable occasion, anyway, I won't go there. There's another one at the kindy, but yeah, so that's meant that I've been kind of in a way, I've been feeling a bit down, I've been drinking a bit, and there've been arguments, and so that difference which we were kind of tolerating is in the last sort of wee while, last couple of years really, has blown up, and I actually went to AA, and I would never go there again, but I went there for a while and had some success, but it didn't really stick. But that was kind of helped.
And that was a couple of years.
That was when was that? A year ago.
So if I can just go back to some of the stuff that's been happening that you've been saying.
Yeah.
It sounds like to me anyway, and we work in this field, deal with people coming in that have got problems, and we're here to help. But it sounds like you're getting to the point where you're having some quite dire consequences from your drinking. Like it's great that you recognise that you're incapacitated to pick up your kids, but that's sort of having a big impact on your life, isn't it?
Well, I did just tell you that, yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's really good that you're here, but it sounds like things are getting quite serious for you with your drinking, the consequences.
Well, you know, it was a big step for me to come here, because the last time I came here, believe it or not, in the paperwork I got was a local AA thing, and I kind of went there and did that, and that didn't work out, and I was quite relieved I didn't have the same guy.
Oh, so you've been here before?
Oh yeah, I came here before because a mate of mine had come here for something, other problem. He thought it was a good sort of first place to start, and yeah, so it wasn't easy coming here the first time, and it was actually there must be something in humans makes them resistant to change. You don't come along to a place like this unless you have to. And it was even harder coming here again because I had even less hope that I might get some answers, because I'd already been here. But then I saw you and I thought, oh, that's good, there's some new face.
Yeah, and like I said, you know, it's great that you come today and that we are experts here to help you, and you know, and it is a hard step to come, and particularly the second time. So, you know, well, we can help you, but I just wanted to sort of really highlight that things are pretty bad for you with your drinking at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I just, yeah, I mean, I kind of feel a bit like, can we, you know, we've been there, and you know, I kind of feel like I've been honest with you, and that's my situation.
Yeah.
And I don't, it's tough enough for me right now in my granny flat.
Yeah.
Without dragging, you know, bringing it up.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say really. I just feel like, yeah, I agree. Things are hard. Yeah.
So let's just carry on with the assessment.
Yeah.
So over the last, say, 3 months, how much have you been drinking?
I'm a beer drinker. I don't know. It's hard. Probably the thing would be that I would just start drinking earlier in the day. Then would be the thing. I would always be someone to have a beer with a dinner and barbecue.
So tell me about a typical day for you then. Like in the last week, maybe we'll just come up a little bit.
Well, in the last week I've been haven't been doing much because my wife doesn't want to have me in the house.
But you know, sort of what to do with your drinking. Tell me about what you know. When would you start drinking?
Maybe in the afternoon, hot in there. Have a few beers.
Few.
Yep. And then I'd build it up and get up to however many, depending, 6, 12.
Yep. And when would you stop drinking?
When I fall over.
Right. Into your granny flat.
Yeah.
Right. I know this is sounds like an interrogation, but what I'm trying to do is get a handle to see how dependent you are on the alcohol physically, which is really important for us to know whether you need a detox or not.
What's a detox?
A detox? A detox is when you're drinking so much that you can't stop without help, and we bring you into our unit here, or at home if you've got enough support and you're not drinking at too high levels, and we give you some medicine that helps you withdraw from the alcohol.
Serious?
Serious.
And how does that work exactly? I mean, how does that start? How's that initiated?
How's it initiated?
Yeah.
As I'm not quite following your track, but it's initiated by you coming in here.
Whose decision is this now?
Oh, whose decision is this?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, you know, where you've come to today, we specialise in assessing for alcohol dependence. So, of course, we work with you, but you know, we at some point we have to advise you what to do for your own health and safety.
Right. Advise me.
Of course, the ultimate choice is yours. If you choose not to have any help, but if you're dependent on alcohol and you need help to stop, there's some quite severe health consequences.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware of the health consequences to the extent that you can have a really boring life and live a long one, and you can have an interesting life and have a bit of adventure and live a slightly shorter one. I'm cool with that choice. I'm just, to be honest with you, from where I'm at, is that the only choice there is, or is that?
Well, we're just getting along the way for me to find out how much you are drinking and how serious it is. But if you're dependent on alcohol and you're drinking at high enough levels, if you stop drinking without assistance, you could have a seizure or have a coma or die. So, you know, it's really important that we look at what's happening for you today.
Okay, well, I wasn't looking at it in that way. I didn't think it was that serious. I sort of was thinking more along the lines of, I don't know what I was thinking. I was just thinking it'd be good to be honest, to just get back to with my wife. I hadn't really thought through what might, So I don't know if I'm really ready for, I don't know, maybe I'm not ready for this.
Okay, but shall we continue on anyway? Because it's really important that I get an idea of if you're going to run into trouble or not.
Right, yeah.
And give you some advice about, you know, what you can do.
Right. Okay.
You seem a little unsure?
I kind of think, well, you're doing ambulance at the cliff stuff, at the bottom of the cliff, you're still thinking worst case scenario. So I think you're saying if I stop drinking completely, I'd need help, but maybe that's not the only thing I have to do here, you know.
Absolutely.
So the choice is mine, right?
Yes.
Okay, yep,
yes.
okay, cool. Yeah, I just had I had to make a bit of a leap there. I hadn't really thought this through, to be honest. And I'm feeling a bit foggy today, so that's all good.
So it sounds to me like you're running a very fine line with being dependent on alcohol, needing to drink because your body needs it, which would probably indicate that you may require a detox.
Right, okay.
So because it sounds to me like you have got a bit of a problem with alcohol now, the fact that you're here and the fact that Nick thinks you've got a problem.
Yeah.
But so you've got a relationship with alcohol. Maybe I'm terming it wrong
That's
or
right,
something,
yeah,
but if you could have your ideal relationship with alcohol.
Right, my dream relationship, my dream relationship with alcohol.
What would it be like?
It would be that I could drink it without consequence, without feeling shitty the next day, or without being sick, or without it pissing off my wife. So if I get all the good things and without all the shit, that'd be good.
Yeah.
But that's not possible. So you're asking for actual possible future scenarios.
No, I'm asking, so it sounds to me, because you said right in the beginning that you've always liked drinking, you know, like you like the effects the positive effects.
Yeah, I don't really, I mean, it's something that I wouldn't really know how to be in many, you know, it's kind of hard to describe, but it's been a part of my life and a part of how I relate to people, part of how I socialise and who
So it's
I
a
am.
really big, important part of your life,
Yeah.
alcohol and socialising and having a good time. Yeah. So there is that, but I was really interested in that you actually recognise the things that you don't want. You don't want to feel sick.
Yeah, that's true.
Rotten, and you don't want it to affect your relationship with Nick.
Yes, that is true.
So your ideal relationship with alcohol would be that you'd still have some, but you wouldn't have the consequences.
I mean, that would be great, but it's not possible, is it?
Like I said, when you first came in, we are the experts in helping people to stop drinking, make changes in their use. You've told me today about how much you're drinking and the effects that it's having on your life, but what I'm really concerned about is how much you're drinking and that you actually need to stop and you need some help to stop.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you some information about what that might look like. You need to come back for another assessment with one of the extra specialist nurses that works upstairs in the unit, because I think that your drinking's at that level. And from there, we need to do some blood tests to see how unwell your liver is. We need to have you see one of our doctors here, and then I think you need to come in for some treatment.
And you base that on me telling you how much I've been drinking?
Absolutely.
Right.
I think you don't realise how significant your use is at this point, and how much damage you're doing to yourself and your family.
You don't think I realise?
No.
Even though that any information you've got from me today has come from me, right? Haven't I just told you?
Yeah, you have, but you kind of, there's a little bit of you, well, there's actually, not a little bit, there is a bit of you, reasonable amount, that recognises the impact that you're having on other people, and I think you owe it to yourself.
Gee, thanks, yeah.
To do something about it.
Yeah, right, yeah. Cool.
And I've tried be the nice nurse sort of thing, but I didn't seem to be getting anywhere with you, so, I just needed to tell you what I think you needed. And I deal with this all the time. Have people coming through, and sort of. I can do some nice sort of talking stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm here to help you. I'm here to make you healthier, and my advice would be that you would come back for a second assessment and do something about your drinking.
Come for a second assessment and meet these people, the nurse and the doctor. And
have some blood tests. I think you'd be shocked at what sort of state your liver was in.
Maybe not. Can't wait. So when would that be?
Well,
second meeting thing?
Given how much you're drinking at the moment, I would make you an appointment for the end of the week.
Right. So you think, okay. All right. Okay.
So what are you hesitant about?
It just seems a bit full on, but no, I mean, you'll make another, I'll make an appointment.
Okay. Okay, and it's kind of, I don't like getting forceful.
No.
But you kind of needed that.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah. So shall we, are you happy with that decision?
Your decision.
Well, it's kind of our decision because you've agreed to it.
I think we can make an appointment. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, thanks for coming, and I'll look forward to seeing you when you're upstairs, because I'm pretty sure that that's the path you're going to take.
Okay.
Good. No more questions?
Good.
Excellent.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay. I'll see you out then.
That'll be great. Thanks.
Hey, Ellie, thanks so much for being part of this project and agreeing to interview Peter. We just wanted to have a quick word with you about what your thoughts were about the interview and how you thought that session went.
Right. Yeah. Well, I always get a bit concerned when people come in and they don't realise how serious their problem is. And so my kind of tact was to, try and get a bit of information out of him and talk about the impacts. And, he clearly saw the consequences, and to me seemed to, have it all wrapped up in his head that there were some not so good things about drinking. But, my role is to provide you know, the best advice, I suppose. And so I felt like I was very caring but very direct, because otherwise he might have gone and not been able to access treatment.
Okay, so you thought that being direct with him and giving it to him straight was probably the most helpful thing you could possibly have done.
Yeah, it just seemed to me that, you know, I could ask him some open-ended questions and do a bit of reflecting back, and you know, I felt like we got a little bit of movement, so to speak, and where he was going with his or thoughts around his drinking. But at the end of the day, I needed to give him some direction and some advice, you know, around that, and I think it worked out okay. You know, he's coming back at the end of the week.
You're pretty sure he's going to be coming back?
Yeah, and he'll stop drinking, and he wants a better relationship with his partner, and yeah, I think, you know, I mean, of course, you know, it'll be his first detox, so it mightn't be an easy journey, and we might see him back again, but yeah, got the ball rolling, I think.
Got him on path.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Is there anything that you might do differently if you had another opportunity to have a chat with him again?
Yeah, I think that I think it got a bit waffly in the middle there, and I think I'd be a little bit more organised, you know, and maybe I'd just hit to the chase straight away with how much you're drinking, give him more advice around the impact of it on his body, and, you know, spend a little bit of time, but I think I spent a little bit too much time looking at what, you know, the negative consequences, and, you know, and maybe I would have I done a little bit about how important his drinking was and how confident he felt if he had to stop, and what else did he need. But I kind of felt like I needed to just, you know, get him, like a good sales, you know, get him booked in. He's booked in now and ready to go.
He's ready to go. Good to go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, not really. I think I did all right. Yeah.
And in regards to motivational interviewing, how do you think that went?
Well, you know, I think I asked open-ended questions. I think I was pretty, you know, I kept on the task, pretty directive. I did some reflecting, offered some advice. You know, I was caring, empathic. I kept telling him that, you know, I was here to help him.
Yep.
Yeah. Maybe I was a little bit overboard on the giving information, because he seemed to kind of pull back body language and get a little bit defensive. But sometimes you've got to roll with that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thanks again, Ellie. I hope things work out well with Pete.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm sure that you'll see him again. I guess what I'm curious about is how did that conversation go for you?
It was okay at the start, and then she became quite confrontational suddenly, and it sort of there were kind of little moments with her where I was kind of like a little bit thrown, and then she suddenly just got quite serious, and it took me a while to understand what she was saying. Actually, I didn't actually know what she was proposing. I actually was honestly expecting that someone was going to burst in the room. I really didn't know what was going on, and I got quite confused in myself. And then I realised that that was a self-referral. I came here because I wanted to, and then I relaxed because I went, well. So then I questioned her and clarified that she was meaning that I might decide to do this thing, and then she sort of came back at me again, and this time she was kind of laying down the law and saying if I wanted to see her again, it would have to be on these terms, that I would sort of have to go down a quite serious road and do all this stuff.
So that was a big surprise for you. You came here wanting to have a talk.
Well, it was
with
nothing
somebody.
like the other guy I talked to a year ago. It was kind of like he was me thinking she'd be an improvement. Or that was a joke. So yeah, it was a surprise because what I thought that would happen was I'd come in and say, look, I'm quite keen on making a change. I don't think AA's really for me, but she never really picked up on that because that's how a lot of that, not like that, but there was quite a lot of that, quite a sort of a, there was something similar about it. I can't put my finger on it. It felt a bit, some of the shit she was doing was a bit sort of people talking at you and expecting things of you and kind of towing the line.
Yeah.
So at a certain point I just went, part of me wanted to punch her, to be honest. Part of me just really wanted to say, how fucking dare you, but I have a bit of a sore head today and I couldn't be bothered. So in the end I decided the easiest strategy was just to go along with it because I knew that I didn't have to turn up if I didn't want to. So the easiest thing to do is make an appointment and not show.
So it's not very likely that you're going to turn up.
No fucking way, mate. No fucking way.
How come?
Well, why do you think?
I mean, it sounds like you feel like you're going to get, be punished or you're locked up or something.
Well, I just think I don't want to be around people who consider me to be a mess to be cleaned up. I don't like to be told what to do, and she was telling me what to do, and to put myself voluntarily in the hands of the people fucking upstairs. I mean, forget it. Some of the options she talked about were so extreme, and so I would never surrender my choice, which is a shame because, I came here for help.
Yeah.
And I didn't get help. I got bludgeoned over the head, which is a little bit different.
That's the way it felt to you. You're getting beat up.
Well, I mean, how it felt, to be honest, was that I'd made an effort and I'd been honest with her, and suddenly she turned on me, and I couldn't be around people that might do that to me because I'm at a state of my life where vulnerable isn't the right word, but but these are tough days for me. I don't need that.
Yeah.
I'd get more help from one of my drinking buddies, honestly, than I would from her right now.
Okay. So, I mean, if we could, and wind the clock back 45 minutes or so, and that interview could have gone different, what do you think might have been that she could have said or done that might have made detox more of a viable option for you?
Well, I mean, I don't want to do detox. I mean, she made, she seemed to be understanding my situation and why I was here. I think if she just made things, just made things a little bit of a less of a leap.
Right.
It just seemed like suddenly we were having a nice chat, and then she talked about chemicals and me having the DTs and stop drinking. I'd never said I wanted to stop drinking. I remember bringing that up. Gotcha. I mean, it was obvious I had a drinking problem, but I never said I wanted to stop drinking completely or anything. And so if she was going to do something different, I guess it would just to have been maybe just sort of tuned into me a bit more and just help me maybe just make some possible suggestions that were a little less extreme, because she's scared me off fundamentally. That's a door that's very much closed, and I would never go in that door again, even if I could book someone else, because if that's the way they do things here, it's not for me.
Right. Okay. So if she would have met you a little bit more of where you're at and tried some things that seemed to be less severe or drastic first, and to see how you go with that, whether that's cutting down on your drinking or weaning off over time, you'd have been more interested in those kind of strategies.
But AA is not an option.
Yeah, you're clear about that.
Well, it might be an option, but it's not my first choice. But really, if this is all there is, then I will come back here, but I'm not going to come back here this week. But if in the end this is the only way, then I still have to come back here, but I'll have to I need to go away and suck it up and prepare myself for whatever I'm going to get thrown at me here. Because she just fooled me. Like I was feeling quite cool with her and it was relaxed, and suddenly, I kind of want to be ready. If that's what it's going to be, if it's going to stop me drinking, great. But if it's going to be hard like that, I can be hard, but I need to be ready for that.
You need to be prepared.
Yeah, a little bit.
If you're going to walk into a minefield, you at least want to have an idea of the lay of the land. Okay. Well, Peter, I wish you the best of luck, however you go.
Okay.
Take care of yourself, and thanks for being part of our project.
Thanks, man.
Cheers.
Cheers.